Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 8th Board of Directors meeting. Thank you to those attending in person tonight, watching us over Zoom, and those staying engaged by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the lobby on the table and turn it in to Board Secretary Kim Coven, seated at the end of the table on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our meeting. Before we move on to tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment and introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Icestone, Eastham, and Williams. I'm President Malone. To my left, we have Vice President Abraham, Directors Finch, Lingo, and Board Secretary Coven. With that, we will dive into our first item on the agenda, which is our student representatives. And we will go with City High, Anya and Nicholas.
All right, thank you for having us. It's Nicholas. So to get it started, we've had a pretty successful winter carnival, or not winter carnival, spring carnival, where we hosted our volleyball tournament at the same time. We had about 300 people or more turn out. So Quiz Bowl just won state championship. Our mock trial team were state runner-ups, so second place, and the other team, fifth place. Our spring esports are doing the absolute best. League, Valorant, and Mario Kart is undefeated, with all being dominant performances.
I just wanted to add, Quiz Bowl will also be going to the national tournament, so that's very exciting. JV Tennis just had their first match yesterday. I was there. It was pretty fun, but they won the match, which last year I know that didn't happen a lot, so it's very exciting. We have a new coach this year. Very exciting. Jazz Showcase was incredibly successful last weekend. And there is a concert, a choir concert at St. Mary's tomorrow night. So if you want to check that out, I'm sure it'll be amazing. We are currently planning prom. We sent out a poll of 3 options for the theme, and we landed on Hollywood Glamour, and that'll be happening on May 3rd. And I think there was one more thing. Sorry. Oh, the musical. We are planning for a musical. Sorry about that. We were asked not to say the name because it's a little embarrassing. You're in town. So they're planning that right now. Very exciting. That's going to happen on the weekend of the 27th. So that's always great. They do a really great job. Miss Darby does a really great job with the musical every year. Very exciting. So you should show up. Go Little Hawks.
Great. Thank you, guys. I know Liberty High student reps were not able to make it tonight, but our West High reps, Mustafa and Grace, here? No. Okay. And Tate did not provide an update for us, so we will move on to the ICEA update by President Brady Shutt.
Thank you. I'm Brady Shutt, President of the Iowa City Education Association. Thank you, President Malone, Vice President Abraham. I always do love hearing from the students, but I'm not going to say I'm sad that I don't have to follow them. They're always so good. So I want to say thanks to our foundation for their work with the Big Idea Hunt that is happening. I was able to serve on a review committee with a couple of our board members, and I was reminded of the power of community partnerships, and I think that they are really showing us how important that is. Kristen Peterson and her team did an awesome job of highlighting Tom Cronk, a PE teacher and our ICEA treasurer, and his work out at Liberty High School in providing accessible opportunities for all of his students. And a lot of that work, of course, was Tom and his team, but the funding was through the Big Idea Hunt of the foundation. And so I want to just remind all of us as we continue to work together how important it is to build community partnerships and to do outreach like that, especially in a climate that is competitive. as we know that it is now. So thanks to Laura and to Kristen and to all of you. Of course, it is April, and I was looking back at last year and thinking, man, it's a lot nicer this year. It isn't so hard. We've had some tough times the last couple of years, so I appreciate all of you and your support as we've worked through those together. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to community comment. Thank you for your interest in the Iowa City Community School District and your willingness to share your comments. You are reminded to give your name, address, and topic on which you plan to speak about. During community comment, persons may speak, I have it written down, so I lost my place. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. Speakers who make comments are reminded that they are responsible for their own statements and may be subject to legal action for those which include hate speech and that are threatening, harassing, or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility and abide by the stated time limits. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting and shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker and 5 minutes for speakers who has the assistance of an interpreter. Speaker's time limit will be displayed on the screen above Board Secretary Colvin. The initial community comment period shall be limited to an hour. Remaining community comment, to the extent necessary, shall take place at the end of the meeting. The board will not engage in any discussion during public comment. The role of the board during this time is to listen. Any individual who does not abide by these rules or otherwise disrupts the meeting, they may be asked to leave and/or referred to law enforcement. And with that, our first speaker tonight will be Peter Byler.
Hi, my name is Peter Byler. I'm an industrial tech teacher at City High in the mornings, and I have a 3rd grader, 6th grader, 9th grader, and 12th grader in the district. I wanted to first address something that was wrong. I noticed in your packet from February 11th or something, you were looking at average class sizes, and it said industrial tech at City High 4, which is just very wrong. So we have 6 periods we teach in the shop at City High, and the smallest class we have is 13, and the largest class we have is probably 20 this trimester. So our average class size has to be over 15. So I don't know where you got that information, but we are completely full in the City High shop. We're bursting at the seams, and we've been open. This is our 3rd year now. So I wanted to tie that into the real comment I want to talk about, which is that, first of all, thank you. This is before I was an employee here, but you built this great shop at City High. I mean, it's amazing. And you spent a lot of money on it. The kids are just really responding to it. And we went from 15 total kids in the program the first year to hundreds now. And the reason that kids are responding to it is because they can walk down the stairs and go to the shop. And my senior this year wanted to learn about cars. So we don't have an auto tech program, and we probably never will. But so he goes to Kirkwood in the afternoon, and he told me, I don't even feel like I'm in high school anymore, because he gets 2 classes at City, and then he has to drive to Kirkwood. And he gets an amazing education at Kirkwood, and it's great, but he misses the pep rally, and he misses lunch, and all that kind of stuff. We should have auto shop class at City High School and West High School and Tate High School and Liberty High School. We should have all those classes that those kids really want. They want to learn how to work with metal, and they want to learn how to work on their car, and they want to learn this stuff. So we have wood shop, and that's awesome. And now you're going to vote tonight on, spending $2 million on something at the Tyler building. And this is a building that we bought, and we paid twice as much as it's worth. You could get it for $1 today. We're going to keep filling it with money. We're going to keep taking all of our money and shoving it into that building. And this is a desperate attempt to do something with this big piece of real estate we bought, and I understand that feeling. In my other, in the afternoon, I'm a real estate investor. That's what I really, that's how I support my family. And you buy a big piece of real estate, and then you've got to do something with it. Every dollar you spend on this building, you're going to spend another $2 later busing kids to it. You're going to spend another $1 later on substitute teachers while their teachers are there. Kids go on a field trip, they want to go out to a prairie or a forest or something and learn about nature. They don't want to go look at more screens at the Tyler Building. But that's what you're going to vote on tonight, is $2 million for more screens for the Tyler Building so we can bus kids to the Tyler Building. And I wish you'd take that $2 million and build me an auto shop. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Matt Orvik.
Hi, my name's Matt Orvik. This is my first time being here. I live on Mulberry Street in Coralville. I have a 5-year-old who's going to be in kindergarten next year, and she's ready to be in high school already, and a second grader who just wants to go to recess. I also own the Plato's Closet and the Once Upon a Child in Coralville. We employ around 60 part-time people between the two stores, 50 to 60. And so work readiness is on my mind. I'm here to support the Junior Achievement Center for Innovation. I'm also a member of the local board for Junior Achievement, and I have been really passionate about it since I moved to town and started Plato's Closet. I had worked in corporate life before that, and had worked mostly with college-educated, more older people, mid-20s and above. And now I hire high school kids and people in college and see a lot of, we just have to do a lot of training to get to step one of, you have to come to work when you're scheduled and that kind of stuff, just basics. So work readiness is really important. And then skills to go above and beyond. Most of the people I employ are temporary and will just be here for hopefully a couple of years. And then they'll move on to something else bigger and better, which is what they should do. So I hope you strongly consider the Dream Accelerator project and other junior achievement initiatives. It'll be an asset to our community and unique to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. And that were the only 2 community comments, unless somebody else had, you'd have to bring it.
Sorry, I didn't know where to put this. Thank you.
All right, and we have Michelle Wiegand.
Close enough. Wiegand.
Wiegand, thank you.
My name is Michelle Wiegand. I'm the mom of a second grader at Shimmick, and as well as a preschooler who we hope will attend Shimmick, starting as a kindergartner in 2026. So first of all, I just would like to hear an update on the re-envisioning plan for elementary schools. Since the fall, there hasn't really been any sort of district-wide public announcements about the plans. So some of us have heard whispers that it's not going to happen, but we have no way of really knowing without communication from the district. We also heard that there would be committees formed in the winter, but it's now spring. So before the board decides whether to vote on something that's over $2 million to build out community space for the junior achievement, can we know whether our elementary schools are going to close or be consolidated or otherwise re-envisioned? I'd really hate for the board to make the decision tonight to spend over $2 million only to be told in the coming weeks that we now must close a school. I strongly support career readiness, and I've devoted much of my own career to that. However, the expectation that all students should have settled on their own career before leaving school doesn't really reflect reality and is likely to set them up for disappointment. My own career path has been full of twists and turns, but I really needed those experiences in order to realize what I did and didn't want in my career. And I learned those things when it was learning, whether it was learning about what environment I preferred to work in or the groups that I wanted to work in or with. I learned those things through things like having my first job as a summer camp counselor or internships or serving as an AmeriCorps member. Those things are where I learned those things. My own story is not unique. Most people have twists and turns in their career, and especially in today's workforce, students need to know that it's okay for them to shift and be flexible and open to new things along the way. Next, I want to just speak directly to the Dream Accelerator. I agree that community partnerships are really important, and that community or pedagogy that embraces experiential learning in and out of the classroom is really fantastic, but I'm not convinced that this is the best way to do it. If there's a goal to get kids thinking outside of the classroom and into the real world, I don't think that taking a field trip to the basement of another ICCSD is the best way to do that. We have lots of rich cultural resources, dedicated community organizations, and education institutions that are eager to work with ICCSD schools, many of which do that at no cost. Other examples of community partnerships and experiential learning include the Junior High Writing Conference with the Iowa Youth Writing Project. Teachers are doing all sorts of cool things in their classroom, and those experiences in the classroom really can't compare to a computer model or module that they might experience here on campus. We also, have a partnership with the Kirkwood Workforce or Workplace Learning Connection, where students gather annually for career fairs and learn from local organizations. There's internship and job shadowing programs through this partnership. And I'd really like to see more more time being considered to what's already being offered through those existing programs, what's happening in the classroom, and also evaluate what other options there are before voting on the first thing that kind of comes up for the Tyler Building. So thank you all for your consideration. I know it's a hard job. I really appreciate all the work that the district itself and the board does to support our kids. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. That concludes our community comment for tonight. Next up would be approval for tonight's agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Board Secretary Coburn, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And before we get to tonight's consent agenda, were there any questions or comments regarding this cycle of bills for directors that reviewed them? Hearing none, are there any items that directors would like to pull from tonight's consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Coburn, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up are our public hearings, and the first one is the 2025 Coralville Central Elementary School Kitchen and Restroom Remodel Phase 2 project. Vice President Abraham.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2025 Coralville Central ES Kitchen and Restroom Remodel Phase 2 project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on March 25th, 2025. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press-Citizen on March 26, 2025. The district will receive bids on this project at 2 p.m. April 10th, 2025 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on March 26, 2025. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
We will close that public hearing and open up the 2025 Penn Elementary Preschool Remodel Project.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specifications for the 2025 Penn Elementary Preschool Remodel Project. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on March 25th, 2025. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on March 26, 2025. The district will receive bids on this project at 2:30 p.m. April 10th, 2025 at the Facilities Management Conference Center, 1137 South Riverside Drive, Iowa City, Iowa. Notice to contractors was published as required by law in multiple statewide plan rooms and on the Iowa City Community School District website on March 26, 2025. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Thank you, Vice President Abraham, and we will close that public hearing. Next up is the Operations Committee report. Director Lingo.
Hello. Tonight, before coming to the meeting, we went over to Ernest Horner Elementary and checked out the Keith Haring mural that was painted on the wall long ago. They took it out and restored it. Some really interesting background on it. But first, one thing that I'd like to bring up is that without one of our former teachers, Colleen Ernst, the mural would have never happened. And it's a priceless piece of art that sits in an elementary school library. So first, I want to just point out the most important assets. And I mean this not to be joking or anything or funny, tongue-in-cheek, but they are our teachers. And without Colleen Ernst within that building reaching out and making that contact in that time with the artist when he was visiting an artist in residence, we would not have this beautiful mural that is priceless in one of our buildings. So we got to hear the story about how they restored it. I mean, they had to cut it out of the wall, take it out of the building at nighttime so the light wouldn't hit it, and bring it in to the special lighting and the Stanley Museum of Art and work on it. And because of some of the great work that the foundation does and who else was involved? The foundation,
Our facilities.
facilities, in getting the resources, the only part that we had to pay was to bring it back to the building. But if you're ever in Horn for an event or just there, I don't know why you'd be there. We're all adults. But if you have kids that go there or have invited to an event there, go check that out and see that priceless piece of art.
Thank you. Next up is our policy review, the 600 Series Policy Education Program. Director Williams.
Thank you. So this is our second read of the 600 series, and we are voting on it later tonight. We had just some minor changes to the 600s. We should have talked about them at the last meeting. I wasn't here, but I am sure Director Istone covered them. Mostly very minimal. We're changing the goals and objective policy to reference the strategic plan on the website, which is more of a living document, and it'll be more up to date. Basic instruction program, minor change to comply with state law. There were a couple changes to the library instruction materials for forms for our parents. And then we put in notice about the internet use of how the district is monitoring student internet use. That's not a change in the policy. They always have been monitoring that. It's just providing notice in some additional opportunities for parents to be aware of the policy. But that's the proposal that we're going to vote on later today.
Thank you. Next up, it takes us to our discussion items for tonight. The first one is cell phones, and Superintendent Degner, did you have something to say before?
I'm just going to introduce these guys, if that's okay. So we have our Executive Director at Secondary Schools, Lucas Potacek, and you've already met Brady Shutt tonight. For the community members that are here, President of our Teachers Association. So you remember that we kicked off this kind of pilot policy or implementation of our new cell phone policy in January. And we're excited to bring some data points and results back to you about how that policy's been going. I'm sure these two are going to touch on it, but probably also note that the governor's cell phone policy went through the legislature. We do believe, based on the policy and the framework that we worked on with the board, that this will sync up well with that. And so there shouldn't be a need for substantial change for that reason. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lucas to get us rolling here.
Thank you to Superintendent Degner. You didn't steal too much of our thunder here with our presentation tonight. But before we do begin, I want to thank a lot of different people that I think have made this as successful as what it has been. That we're going to communicate some data out that shows exactly that. First of all, our staff, that includes our teachers, our paraeducators, our supervisory paras, our secretaries, administrators, all of which the success of this policy could not be done without the help of all of them. Our students and families, we know that for some more than others, this was a change in their practice on a given day. So we do appreciate the flexibility and the cooperation of our students and families. And then lastly, with our work group, we combined administrators and teachers to really think through what we would need to have a successful rollout of this policy. We created an FAQ, we created a lot of different scenarios, so I don't think there was much that caught us off guard once the policy took place. So again, I would be remiss if we did not start off by thanking them.
Just to build on that as well, just a thank you to the board. You gave us clear direction. You studied this issue for quite some time over the course of last spring and then again this summer. I think we had momentum on that, but then we asked if we could pause just a little bit and, you know, come together as a collaborative team to make sure that we got it right. And I know Lucas does as well. We really appreciate your willingness to do that, you know, on our behalf. And I think we got a better policy as a result of it. So as you can see, just so we don't bury the lead on this for our executive summary, the number of infractions have been declining across a couple of different metrics that Lucas will show you. The vast majority of students who have a cell phone infraction have only one. So I think that we're doing a good job of reteaching and holding them accountable to our expectations. There's been overwhelmingly positive feedback from staff, increased along the lines of student engagement, the consistency of the enforcement, and then the adequacy of the support and training we've provided so far. One of our highlights was that 88% of the respondents to a March survey, that's secondary staff members, cited the policy as either effective or highly effective. The policy, as Superintendent Degner did mention, is consistent with legislation that's being considered by the Iowa legislature that's now on the desk of the governor.
All right, so let's get to our objectives here for this evening. I'm going to start by going through some data. If you remember, we talked about some success metrics that we would use to determine how well the policy is being impacted in the buildings and the impact it has on students and staff. The success metrics that we'll be looking at tonight are a lot of the totals. So I do want to go through, there are some other metrics that we talked through during our creation of this policy. 2 months into the policy, it's very difficult to have some of those things highlighted, given the fact that this was implemented in the middle of a grading term, as well as, again, 2 months to try to compare at the beginning of the year to now becomes very difficult. But what you'll see is the data in itself. Brady's then going to highlight the staff survey results, which, again, as he said, were overwhelmingly positive. And then we'll end with some questions and discussion from all of you. All right, so I'm going to show 2 different slides here, the first of which are just the grand totals. Again, I tabulated 9 weeks worth of data, and I talked about thanking our building administrators and our building teachers. We did not want this to be counted anything towards anything in behavior through Infinite Campus. So this has been all old school data collection, either through their cell phone logs that they create within their own building or through an Excel created document. So again, a huge thanks to the building, but what you're gonna see here, and it's pretty easy to tell, is that we've seen a decrease in the total numbers from week 1 to week 9. And you're gonna see some ticks that go up a little bit here and there, and that's gonna be highlighted in this next slide. But again, this is just grand totals over the course of the 9 weeks that we've been implementing the policy. The reason why you may see some changes in this, and this will take a little bit to try to hopefully do a good enough job to describe the reasons and what this data means. We know that since we created this policy, we have some days that have a full 5-day school week. We have some that had a 4-day week. We had some that had 3. We were all over the place, given to scheduled days off, as well as this took place in the greatest time of year with weather cancellations. So in order to try to be somewhat consistent with how we compare from one week to the next, we used based upon the average number of minutes in that given week. Not great. You see like how can we go by 0.014? It was the best way to try to go from one week to the next, given how inconsistent the weeks were, with 5-day school week being probably the least consistent out of all the weeks that we had it. So you see a few different things here. We wanted to do a total average based upon the orange line, and what you see there does highlight the fact that we've seen a decrease from 1 week to the next. You then see the difference in the data being separated down by middle school and high school. So you see our high schools, again, probably not a surprise given the number of students we have in those buildings. Again, the trends with the high school and the middle school are the exact same as what we see with the totals for our district, that we've seen a decrease. Pretty significant, especially from week 1 to week 9. Oh yeah, it's still me, my fault. All right, so what we wanted to do next is kind of break down where our district totals were, again, separated middle school and high school as well as totals. Brady highlighted that the majority of our violations with students happen once. Again, that takes a lot of reteaching. We do see some students with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's work that our buildings need to do with some of those repeat violations with our particular students. But you see here the majority of our students have the one violation over the course of the 9-week implementation. What we did in the next slide was to then break that down by building. If there was anything less than 10, some of that might be 1, 2, or 3, but we didn't want to do highlight any numbers that might have been fewer than 10, which has been consistent with how we communicate data over the course of our district when we do these presentations. I thought it was also important as we highlight the number of students that had those violations. It was also, we show what the total enrollment of our secondary schools is. So with just under 8,100 students, you see the totals there that were just around, 1,300 of our students had one violation or the next. Again, given the fact that this was a change in some buildings, maybe more so than others, we anticipated to see some students having these violations. I think we'd be more startled or alarmed if we saw 0, because that means we may not be enforcing the policy consistently. But what Brady's going to show is the fact that, when the fact that students did have these violations, the teachers were consistent with their enforcement, and the administrators and support staff were consistent in supporting the students and supporting the staff member. Oh,
you guys should.
Heaven's sakes, I've got the slides here in front of me. What we did last time was also communicate through a survey with the students. We did not do a formal survey with the students this particular go around, but what we do have is a superintendent advisor group that Superintendent Degner and I meet with 4 different times throughout the year. So this is a great opportunity for us. This is high school students. Right now it's juniors and seniors, and then we always have our incoming juniors for next year will join the group later this year. But they're always pretty willing to share their feedback about anything that's going on in the district. And 2 different meetings this year have been focused on the cell phone policy. So you can imagine the first time we had this conversation was prior to the implementation of a new policy. Didn't go over very well. Superintendent Degner and I maybe weren't the most popular people at that particular meeting, asking, why are you doing this to us? They could understand the reasons why for their classmates and their friends, but not for themselves. But again, this was a great avenue for us to get feedback from students that have been in our system for quite a while, and that they have the audience in the ear that feel comfortable enough to tell us what they feel is the truth of what's going on. So we did want to highlight some common themes, and we had about, we typically have 14 students that are part of that group. We had about 10 or 11, I think, that particular day, given some conflicts. But we wanted to highlight some kind of glow spots that came up in conversations with the particular students. They said it's definitely working. Now, do they totally 100% agree with this and like the policy? No, but they feel, given the enforcement of it, is that it's definitely working. They talked about and highlighted the consistency with teachers enforcing the policies. Our students sometimes are brutally honest, which we sometimes need to hear. They were the first ones to tell us before we highlighted the new parts of the policy that you can have whatever policy you want, unless it's consistently enforced by everybody in the building. A policy is not going to make any difference. So they did speak from the lens that in all their buildings, it's being consistently enforced no matter what teacher they have, what classroom, what grade level they are in. They see the policy works because they see less phone usage across the board throughout the entire building. They see that students are more motivated not to use the phone as much outside of school, which was a surprise to us. And, that's a great benefit from this particular policy, but they feel that either themselves or they know their friends or siblings around them, because they're not on it as much during the school day, they don't see as much of a need to be on it outside the school day. And then they see also that there's been a decrease in the amount of total screen time that the students are using as well. Now, it would be remiss again if we did not talk through some of the things that they gave us for advice or some things that we need to consider moving forward. But this was kind of echoed by multiple students, and one very eloquently talking about the accommodations of students with 504s and IEPs. Now, we do have an exemption piece of our policy that highlights students that have those accommodations in their plan. That certainly goes through for students to be able to have phones during the day if technology assistance is within there. So they highlighted that, and some of those things I think we maybe was not greatly communicated to that particular student. I know that particular student's situation, however, and we worked through it with the administrators in her particular building. Then also, we still need the devices for research-related items. That was one thing they wanted to highlight. Now, again, I want to echo pieces of the policy. I didn't want to take and have a rebuttal back to the student by saying, but you do need to know that the policy does state that if a teacher does need to allow students for the use of a cell phone during a class period, they just need to receive the permission from their administrator. But again, they highlight the fact that there's some things the cell phones can do that are either a little bit easier or a little bit more feasible to do than their Chromebooks. And again, the last part of the growth spot that we have is that they see less phones out when the policy is being consistently implemented. So again, kind of contradicts what we saw in one of the compliments that we saw from the students. But again, they echoed the fact that the more consistently it can be enforced, their student body will be more consistent with having it not out during said time.
Shout out to Kristen Peterson again and her team. They helped us put together the staff survey. So that was sent out via email to every secondary staff member. We did break that down by employee group, and are able therefore to go in and take a look at people who may need more support by employee group. And that's something that as we move forward, we'll continue to look at and we'll do. Some of the highlights, again, improvement in student engagement, ability to teach and support students, saw high levels of support. Student behavior and focus was better, as stated by the people who did the survey. There was a consistency in the enforcement of the policy, and I think that's something we were all very concerned about, is making sure that if we have a policy that's actually being implemented with consistency, we are seeing people report that it is, and then that they are receiving the appropriate amounts of training and support, and as I mentioned earlier, that the policy is effective. So that really is 362 respondents. We have probably at the secondary schools, I don't know, maybe 1,200, I would say probably employees, somewhere in that neighborhood. You see it heavily broken down into teachers. That would be consistent with our overall employee group, probably also consistent with the engagement that we get on other surveys. So effectiveness of the policy, that's received very effective and somewhat effective, reaching up to 88%. For me, I think that was one that I really looked at and thought, okay, I appreciate seeing that. I wanted, to see, of course, all of these things, but you want a policy that you spend a lot of time creating to be at least perceived as effective. And no one perceived it to be very ineffective. So I think that's also good. Engagement during instructional time, slightly improved or somewhat improved, or significantly improved or somewhat improved, have the highest, as you can see there. Again, another, I think, indicator, no one saying it significantly worsened. The ability to teach or support students during instructional time, significantly improved and somewhat improved. Once again, reaching up above the 80% rate on those, and no one saying it was significantly worsened. Change in student behavior. We had this one broken down just a little bit differently. The students are more focused, slightly improved student behavior, of course, are your two top. They're at about 80%. No noticeable change, gets a 15% almost, slightly worse, but then no one saying students are more distracted. Consistency. I think this will just be ongoing work. We're going to have new employees across all of our employee groups as we start a new year. That's going to be something I think that's a big takeaway, is what did we learn from this trial period? I appreciated that we thought about it that way, that we thought, okay, it's okay to do this in the middle of a school year. We're going to learn some things. We're going to be able to train people better in terms of consistency. So you see a high level of responses saying very consistently or somewhat consistently. And then the training that we've provided to people. Again, I think that was important for us. We've been all engaged in this conversation pretty extensively, that we have a big employee group. They haven't necessarily, but I felt, some pride there that we did have folks saying, yeah, for the most part, there's the right amount of training. As I dove deeper into those a little bit, I did look at and Lucas and I looked at who would have benefited from more training or didn't have the appropriate amount of training. That sort of split across the employee groups. There wasn't a pattern. I would say that a takeaway is that our support staff probably need additional training. That sort of broke the pattern, which you might anticipate. They probably didn't have the same level of engagement with their administrators and their collaborative teams. So that's a takeaway that we have as we continue to move forward, as we'll have to continue to do that. And then the support, I looked at that one as well with Lucas to see if we were finding any sort of pattern. There wasn't really a great pattern on that one. And when you start to get numbers that are really low, we're talking 10, 12 people, sometimes there might be some self-reporting bias that's going on. I'm not a statistician, but I think that there's some caution in making too much out of some of those lower numbers. But we are mindful of that. We'll continue to provide support across the employee groups. The governor does have a bill on her desk, House File 782. Our read of it is that we are in compliance with it. We will receive a model policy from the Department of Education. The amendment that had been put on it, or having a May 1st, 2025 requirement, was actually taken off today. So there's not a date for that from the Department of Education. The expectation is that districts will implement this July 1st, 2025. So we're fine along those lines. There's an A through G in the bill, and at least in our read of it initially, we, pending guidance from the Department of Education, I think we're okay with what we're doing. So I think that's good news. We were not cited as one of the districts in the extensive conversations, I know, about a district who has done it. But I'm proud that we did take this on. We collaborated. We engaged our community. We came up with a policy that we'll continue to refine. So thank you, to all of you for doing that. And then if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you. Directors, feel free.
I just have a comment and then a fairly brief question. One, this is a great report. I think it meets our request from earlier when we established the policy to have an assessment of the policy fairly quickly, and I really appreciate that happened. We did receive a comment by email in which the writer asked if there's a possibility of considering a modification of the policy to allow phone use in phone zones in buildings. And I'm trying to remember, but my recollection is that the study group considered that possibility, that aspect. And the decision was not to try to do that. Am I amiss in?
There are identified areas within the secondary schools where some students are allowed to use their phones. Juniors and seniors who are on an open hour, our thinking was we wanted to keep them on campus rather than having them, they have an open campus privilege if they've earned that. We wanted to keep them on campus, so we do have some identified for that smaller section of students. That probably would be a good model to look at and to engage in that question with our administrators to see how has that been going. Is that something that we could expand out to different groups? I would want to also engage maybe our students on that to see what that looks like or feels like or sounds like or what ideas they have. But it's an interesting, we have, I think, a little bit of that.
Yeah, one of the pieces we also talked about when creating it, mainly at our high schools more so than our middle schools, they've got a lot of different kind of parts of their building that students congregate in. And one of the particular areas we talked about as a safe spot for students to be in their phones was like a commons area.
Well, and again, this is just my interpretation of that comment, so I'm not sure how the board members feel.
I was going to say, I think the way I read it was, and the example given was that if it's not during instructional time and I'm a kid in a class and I go to the bathroom, I'm not supposed to have my phone, but if somebody's got their open period or something else and they're transitioning to a place or whatever and they do have their phone, like how is somebody who's, somebody who's wandering the halls supposed to know where that person's coming from and where they're supposed to be to know if it's right or wrong? So like having the place for it, like if the hallway is not the place, I think that probably got right at the crux of the problem.
And the hallway is not the place. That's probably work in progress. I mean, I do think that if that's something that is, Yeah, just something we'll have to continue, to work on. Kids in a hallway right next to the commons, how far away is, that's just sort of the life in the secondary school. It gets a little tricky, but I think it's a good point, something we'll, take into consideration.
And I'm probably wrong about this, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe clear up the policy for me, but I thought that during instructional time, the hallways were off limits and that it was supposed to be limited to the zones, like the commons.
Correct.
So maybe there's just some misunderstanding in the buildings about what the policy is, perhaps? Okay.
Yep, you're right, Director Finch. The hallways are off limits. I think a challenge might be a student who is in the hallway after the bell has sounded, the tardy bell has sounded, who is a junior or senior on an open campus and is checking their phone on the way to the commons. That could create a perception. They shouldn't be. That's the policy. I think that's sometimes a harder reality in a big building. A kid might see that, looking out of their classroom and say, hey, what's going on? That kid has their phone. But you're right. You're correct in your interpretation policy.
Right, that's what I thought. I didn't know if my memory served me right.
Yep.
Thank you for coming to present this data, and I really appreciate all the work that went into collecting the data and all the work the administrators are doing to support the students, I mean, not the students, but the teachers in this work. It's really nice, they say it takes 6 weeks to make a habit, right? So it's really nice to see that graph where it goes down, and then right after 6 weeks is right where it flattens out and kind of plateaus. So I'm really pleased to hear that this is having a positive effect in the buildings.
Thank you.
First, I just want to thank the superintendent and his staff and everybody here I brought up screen time last spring, and starting with the Chromebooks involved into this, and I know we're swinging right back around to computers at a later date. But I really appreciate all the hard work and everything that you've done, and I really appreciate the way you did the graph. I know it's silly, but the one that you did per minute, because it's interesting because I just multiplied by 10, but you go 3.5. There would have been 3.5 infractions that first week every 10 minutes. Just think of that. Like every 3 minutes, a student has their cell phone out and gets dinged. And then to see it go all the way down to less than 1 every 10 minutes is pretty awesome to me, at least. So thank you, and thank you for presenting it another way, because now that I realize that week 6 is probably that 5-day school week, and it reminded me of all those days this winter that we had off, and so thank you.
Thank you for, it was a really great presentation, and the data was great to see, and to see that our policy is effective. I'm assuming we will get another update at the end of the school year, perhaps, to see how we finish the year, and maybe come back with what you would like to see different or feedback from staff. But my one ask is, when that next update comes, if we can get our students to provide feedback. I've been talking to students at Liberty, City, Tate, and West, and that's, it's important that they have a voice to share what their experience has been. It's great to also work with our advisory council, but I want to make sure we get as many voices as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would love nothing more than to come back and talk about this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one follow-up item for the board will obviously be that policy primer with phones too, that we'll then of course get from ISB. So we'll root this in policy, and then, like you said, I think another survey administration in particular, so the students can provide that feedback. So those will be a couple of follow-up items for us. Just one side note, I remembered, there continue to be some little things that pop up, like kids talked about submissions of work that they were really able to do easily with their phone, take a picture and submit it onto Canvas so that it would get counted. That's a lot harder with the Chromebook and more cumbersome. And so there's some little things like that I think we'll just need to continue to address and work out. But overall, like Lucas said, they gave us some good feedback and some good things to go on. And I think I would thank you guys for having the initiative to take this on in kind of an uncertain time where districts were, questioning how to do this or how to step into it. So thanks for your feedback.
Thank you. Next discussion item is our special education update. and Director Reddy. She's already there. Go ahead.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Go.
I was going to say.
You're already here, so
I'm here.
skip the intro.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you might
Just do it.
just talk
Yeah.
about it for me.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for giving me a little bit of time to briefly talk to you tonight about the way our district is able to serve all of our students, and specifically our students with IEPs. So tonight I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about our district developed service delivery plan and hopefully provide a little bit more of a simplified approach to here's what this looks like in practice, because I know in education we tend to sometimes throw on a lot of jargon, and our district developed service delivery plan, which is a mouthful in itself, our DDSTP, is a little bit can be a little bit cumbersome to navigate. So we're just going to go into that a little bit today and then talk about some of the practices that are happening in our system and then feedback we've gathered from our building team, specifically our administrators, on where we continue to excel in our service delivery and where there's opportunities for us to continue to improve. So just a friendly reminder to contextualize this data for us tonight. Per our APR, we have about 14,000 students that we serve, 14,378. And in the 2023-2024 APR report, that included 1,627 students with IEPs. So within our service delivery model, we have 4 primary modes of instruction for our students with IEPs: instruction that occurs in the general education setting, instruction that also occurs in general education but is provided through a co-taught model, direct support, and then school within a school. We are working to align our language to the state definition, so school within a school might sound like a new thing to you, and I would want to just highlight that other language that you've probably heard us use is language like self-contained or alternate setting. Those all mean the same thing, but school within the school is the state-approved definition, so we're trying to be more tight in our alignment with that. And to kind of set the foundation for this conversation, it's important to note that per IDA, we have to look at least restrictive environment for all of our students with IEPs, which means that our kind of baseline should be that they're in the environment with typical same-aged peers, and then we work from there to determine what other services and supports might be required for that student's needs to be met. So that first service model is really that consultation. That falls under general education, and consultation is when our general education teachers and special education teachers are partnering on more of that kind of professional level to better understand how to meet the needs of their students. So as a special education teacher, I would be working with that content teacher to talk through how might you scaffold this instruction, or how might you modify this activity to support this learner, but I'm not providing any direct services to that student. For collaboration, that is more of a consistent and ongoing support between that special education teacher and general education teacher. So consultation is meant to be incidental and occasional. Collaboration is a agreed upon established time where team members are working together to co-plan and to be able to support the needs of the students in the general education classroom. Co-teaching kind of intensifies that. So when collaboration is not meeting the needs of the students, teams might consider co-teaching. That is really when you're assuming shared ownership of the instruction and delivery. So the special education teacher and general education teacher regularly get together. They're planning for not only the whole group instruction, but also then looking at where are the identified gaps that our different learners have within that setting, and then grouping those students. And the special education teacher is working with a group of students who some may have IEPs, some might have English language learner needs, some might just be struggling with that content area, while the other teacher is working with the other students. So again, it's a cohesive approach that all professionals assume full responsibility for, and assume responsibility of the outcomes for all the students. When students still need additional support, then we look at pulling them out of that inclusive environment and providing some small group or one-on-one instruction. And that's where it's really intensive instruction aligned to very specific objectives. Typically, it extends and expands beyond what modifications, accommodations, and instruction can occur within that whole group setting. and uses intervention materials that we provide as a system aligned with the student's goals. And then when a student requires even more intensive support, that's when we look at that school within a school model. So the school within a school model is when a student requires substantial modification and accommodation. Even with intensive intervention, they're unable to be successful for large periods of time. And so we look at a more restrictive and intensive support for that student to access. Our students with IEPs are represented here by level. Leveling is, weighted leveling is how the state aligns our kind of funding with complexity of needs. So when we develop an IEP, we write in the student services. A matrix is used to weight that student, and then that equals a certain funding amount. In simplest forms, like the levels indicate level of complexity of student. So non-service means there's no direct service provided by a special education teacher. A lot of times those are students who might only have a speech goal, as an example. We don't receive funding for those students. Level 1 is would be, they just have maybe a goal area or not a high level of need, and then it goes up from there. This next visual is meant to show, of those students with IEPs, how much of their time is spent in general education, accessing their curriculum with their peers, and then how much of their time is spent outside of the general education setting, receiving services that they need outside of that environment. And so when we think about how students are accessing services based on their needs, that's really going to take us through that IEP process and resource allocation. A critical component of that is our LEA, which is our local education agency, or in simpler terms, that's all. And for Iowa City, that is our building principal. They often sit in that role and space. That principal is using the data and working with the IEP team to allocate resources and services on behalf of the district. So the IEP team would determine, based on the data, what services and supports the student might require and in what setting they should occur. The LEA then determines how will we achieve that. So they allocate the resources, the staff, et cetera, to ensure that we can meet the needs of the student. While the LEA ultimately has decision-making autonomy and as far as allocation of resources and supports at the building level, we also do provide a lot of support. Special education sometimes feels like a moving target. It can be complex and nuanced, and we should be looking at every student individually. And so because of that, I'm proud to say our district continues to invest a lot of resources and support at the building level to be able to partner with our special ed teachers, our paraeducators, our building administrators, and our overall building teams so that they are prepared and equipped to navigate just the challenges that come with working with in complex situations and with complex kiddos. So we have been, I think, gosh, are we in year 2 or year 3 now, guys, of our BI role? This is year 2. 3? See, I'm questioning. 2.5. Year 2 at the building level. Thanks, Molly. So we are in year 2 of implementing with consistently this behavior interventionist role at the building level. We'd had a district level BI role. We've continued to get phenomenal feedback around that role. That role is supporting buildings and implementing tier 3 behavior plans, working with our behavior fidelity systems, and working within our MTSS system to really support that safe, predictable environment for all of our students. Our lead support teacher is a support to all of our special education teachers. You can see each of our high schools has one, each of our middle schools have one, and then we have about one for every 3 elementary buildings. And those, they meet regularly. The expectation is they're meeting at least twice a month with each of our special education teachers for just-in-time coaching. I will say almost all of our special education teachers meet with them much more frequently than that and have just through feedback said how much they appreciate that role. In addition to that, we have a special education social worker role. That role is predominantly serving our secondary buildings through a feeder pattern. And they really work, we've focused their work around case management when it comes to supporting students with complex mental health needs, that being one of their primary roles, but then the other primary support being to supporting our students with IEPs being transition ready, having access to waiver services or case management, and helping connect all of those supports that wrap around our students and making sure we're working as a comprehensive team. And then we have one social worker for elementary, and because she is spread so thin, she primarily supports on our most complex cases where we have students really struggling with mental health challenges, or we're working with a family who has a lot of unique needs, and we're kind of wrapping around that family. In addition to those building level supports, we have district level supports. So our behavior interventionists and Tier 3 SEBH team are for those kind of tippy top student cases that just require some unique skills and training and support. And then our special education coordinators partner closely with our building administrators. We meet regularly with our building administrators at secondary. All of our secondary principal teams have requested we meet with them weekly. So we meet with them weekly to kind of just go through their special education priorities. What's going on? What's hard right now? What's your data telling you? What do you need to problem solve? And then at elementary, we have a range. We have 2 buildings that meet with us monthly. Most of our buildings meet with us bi-weekly or weekly. And then myself. So again, I'm proud to be part of a team that I think invests in supporting our teams, because special ed can be really tricky. But we also have phenomenal people doing the work. So as we continue to gather data from our different stakeholders, this feedback primarily comes to us from our special education teachers and our building administrators, and was gathered kind of informally through conversation, but also formally through a feedback survey. So areas that we've identified we need to continue to refine or focus on and improve is continuing to build out our intervention materials so teachers feel like they have access to a robust set of tools to provide that specially designed instruction. Continuing to focus on our teacher development and providing them ongoing intensive learning in developing IEPs and what that looks like in implementation. We hear from our teams that just complexity of student needs continues to be a challenge, and how do we ensure our teams are equipped to support those complex needs. Specifically within this, we hear a lot around students with complex behaviors and students with complex communication needs. So our students who use like an augmentative communication device. Our teachers report feeling sometimes ill-equipped to support those students. Some challenges that are just true is Achieve is still a relatively new platform and not without its glitches. That's our IEP platform. And right now we're going through the parent portal rollout, which has also presented lots of challenges. So that is a state-led initiative that we have been asked to move forward and carry a little bit of the water on. In addition to that, we have just the state requirements and processes for compliance that continue to intensify. So we've had additional designations as a district, and then they've continued to fine-tune the child find process, or as we've partnered with the AEA, looking at those roles and responsibilities. That's just presented additional challenges to us. And again, that DA designation from the state and what that required of us in regards to learning being required of us that we did not facilitate or lead has presented some additional challenges with teacher development time. The other area that we identified we'd like to continue to focus on and improve on is just family engagement. I think that's work we always want to do. And again, just like for educators, special ed can feel like this nuanced thing. For our families even more so, and having sat on both sides of the table as an educator and as a parent, the process is just very challenging and can be overwhelming. And so the more we can engage our families and make sure that they feel a part of this work we're doing, the better served our students will be. Areas that were highlighted by our team is that we 2 years ago invested in 4 of our team members becoming internal trainers for co-teaching. So this was the first year we stood up our co-teaching cohort. We continue to scale that up, and we've partnered with ELL and our content kind of leads and our collaborative team leads, and that has been really exciting work. Again, the survey responses we've received just demonstrate how much they value the comprehensive support we're able to provide our buildings. So those lead support teachers, BIs, et cetera. We've continued to partner to work with, as the system continues to focus on post-secondary readiness, that's allowed us to look at our students with IEPs and their access to CTE and electives. And we've seen huge improvements in our data. Again, a huge shout out to you guys for approving our partnership with the Transition Alliance program. This is year 2 of that work, and our data is phenomenal. I'd love to come and share some of those bright spots with you at some point as well. Our TAP programming and the work you guys allowed us to do with the electric vehicles, another shout out to you guys, has allowed us to get more students access to work-based learning experiences than ever before, and our data is just really exciting. So lots of progress there. We've been able to work with our buildings, both at the middle school and high school specifically, on the master scheduling process and really being intentional about how we schedule students, which has allowed more access to those CTEs and electives. And then this year we started a cohort specifically in SEBH, literacy, and math around new intervention materials at middle school. The timing with the shift in middle school, it just allowed us to kind of leverage that work we were doing in the shift. And we got overwhelmingly positive feedback, and we're going to be scaling that up to high school next year so that all of our teachers will have access to those intervention tools for next year. And then again, just the ongoing collaboration we do with our buildings and teams. I can't speak highly enough of our buildings and the work they're always willing to do with us and partner with us, and their commitment to serving all of our kids. And then from a systems perspective, we continue to have the lowest roster sizes in the UEN and the most supports, and I think it's important to highlight the way, again, we wrap around our teachers to allow them to be able to do the good work that they do. And I think that's one way we do that, is we do invest in our special education teachers by maintaining very low roster sizes. And then this year, a huge shout out to Mr. Proud. We were able, and the team, as we did this work, but we were able to stand up some dedicated learning for our paraprofessional community, which I know has been a need and a long time coming. And so next year will be year 2 of that. We've already built out the scope and sequence. We have some required, learning we feel is important for all of them to engage in, but then we're continuing to customize it. And then we are recording all of it, so we're building out a digital repository so that as we bring on new team members, they always have access to that learning. And then we offer it in a cycle throughout the year, because it is an employee group that we see hiring throughout the year. So those are some of the things that I think we've continued to see success with. So with that being said, what questions might you have?
Thank you, Director Reedy. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
The first question is, one of the things that is always noticeable in board docs is the turnover of paraprofessionals within the district. What ways are we working, or are we working on in ways to keep that turnover lower, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I might look to some of my colleagues to help answer that to help me answer that. I know that that's a conversation that Mr. Shutt and Mr. Proud and I actually just recently had, and something we talk about ongoing. I do think the professional development investment was one thing we wanted to prioritize, because that was feedback we had received from that employee group, is that they didn't feel like they had the learning and the development they needed. In addition to that, we are looking at some opportunities to provide some additional kind of expanded learning within their role that could lead to some development within other job opportunities. That's work we're currently investing in, without going into too much detail, because we're still doing that work. Are there other things that you would highlight?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would highlight, and I don't want to negotiate in public, so I have to be very careful here, but some of the things that we had discussed in closed session related to negotiations, we hope will be items that will be advantageous for that retention. This is something that we're consistently working on. One of the challenges when working with paraprofessionals, it's very difficult work. It is, and I think we can all acknowledge that, and we all know it. And there's other things within the private sector that pay very similarly, if not a little bit more. So then we're always competing with other employers. That's a little different than some of the other positions we have, like a teacher or different things. So that's something that we're consistently working on. We're always looking at different ideas. We've tried some different techniques to recruit and then retain, but I think that's something that we're constantly working on. And hopefully we'll have some positive steps here as we work through the negotiation process this spring.
The next question kind of piggybacks on that last one. I know there's always the national discussion of shortage of special ed teachers and just retained special ed teachers in general. How do you feel our district matches up to finding teachers or having a need for teachers?
Yeah, well, I can confidently tell you we're positioned better than any other UEN in the district or in the state. And I attribute that to a few things. I do think that, again, we as a system create the conditions that make special education teachers want to be a part of this district. I think that starts with our mission and vision and what we believe around how we serve kids, which draws people to our system. And then I think the conditions we create to encourage them to stay, the low roster sizes, the additional supports and resources that we wrap around them, the culture and climate in our buildings, right? There's so many components to that. We continue to be positioned really well when it comes to our staffing for special education. The one licensure area that does present sometimes a bit of a challenge is our Strat 2 ID licensure. And so Nick and I have been talking about how we can, and Brady and I as well, have been talking about how we can continue to recruit and then retain people in that licensure group. But again, I recognize the position we're in as one that we are very lucky, because when I sit in that space with the other UEN directors and hear them 30 teachers short, or, and their rosters are starting at 25 or 30 per special education teacher, I'm grateful to be in our system.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional? Okay. Thank you so much. Next up is our presentation for the Center for Innovation Student Programming, and Superintendent Degner, and lots of other folks.
Yeah, sorry, there's a few of us here to come on up. I'll try to get back to, maybe I'll just click out of a few of these. How about that, guys? We don't need that one either, right? Okay, there we go. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Get to hear from me at the podium here a little bit. We're excited to talk to you tonight a little bit about some of the ideas we touched on. Would have been late this fall in October when we presented to you last about student programming for the Center for Innovation. And so tonight we wanted to revisit that conversation. And then, of course, you have an action item following the presentation here tonight, too, where we're basically asking for your blessing to continue to move forward down this path. What I wanted to spend some time on initially is just kind of restating how we got here with the Center for Innovation and the need for student programming to meet our district goals. And one of those goals that we set early on, you guys might remember in COVID, we did all this via Zoom. We had several community meetings and forums, and really developed what our portrait of a graduate would be for our learners in the Iowa City Community School District. And we identified these 6 different competencies of adaptability, empathy, communication, global citizens, critical thinking, and learner's mindset. And that's what we believe our graduates should all have. And that's not something you just get as a senior in one of our high schools. That is something that we need to have multiple touch points on throughout their academic experience. And I think we have some great success stories about where those things are going. Even heard from a few of our community commenters tonight about some of those good things happening in our school buildings, where kids are refining and acquiring these skills and improving upon those different areas. I think our job as a system is to continue to enhance that work and connect them to what the acquisition of those skills might mean for the future for them. The other thing that we did during some of that same time frame while developing a portrait of a graduate was really we looked to extend our PEPL. And with that, we talked to the community about our facility master plan, our second facility master plan. The second facility master plan was built a little bit differently than the first one. We focused more on themes in the construction of that facility master plan. And you guys know that we're going to come back with some updates to our facility master plan because those needs have changed, right? But the things we want to stay anchored to are really those themes that the community told us that were important. And that was, at the time, we really had and I think this one's also a little bit due to COVID and the time and space we're in, additional classroom space. Obviously, we felt different about our enrollment at that time, not knowing necessarily all of the impact COVID would have or what our enrollment projections would look like as they do today. But you can also remember social distancing being a very big thing that would have influenced some of that commentary at the time. Career and technical education was something that came through very clear from the community. You can tell we've done things like Mr. Byler talked about tonight to continue to invest in our home build program, right, to try to accomplish some of those goals and invested in some projects at our high schools to make that a reality. Health and safety, no surprise, right, that we would have identified health and safety as a big concern at that time. So you think about some of our HVAC projects and investment that we've made along the way with FMP 2.0. And then learning pathways, college, career, life ready. out of any of these, that career tech ed and then learning pathways, there's going to be a kind of a consistent common theme with some of the things you hear for those student experiences tonight. That was a definite theme for us as well. Social emotional learning, kind of mental health and well-being of our students, we know is critically important. We've all gained a much greater understanding of that the last several years. And then finally, STEAM and STEM. And so then from looking at those themes, one thing the district had determined at that time was the need for a multi-use facility to try to help us accomplish those. And I think some of that was informed off of some of the success at Kirkwood, but also some of the limitations from the regional center for us, just knowing where it's positioned in our district, but the value in some of those academies and the ability to create some synergy for class size and sections when we pull from multiple sections in the district. And we also had some other ideas about some pieces we could potentially accomplish with the Center for Innovation, and I think you'll see that reflected in some of the approaches that we're sharing here with you tonight. Just for a visual, since we're not yet holding our meetings in that space until this summer when we have a chance to move some of your AV equipment over, we need a little bit of a gap of time. So as the community's listening, that's the reason we're still hosting our meetings in this space. We do need several weeks to get some of the AV equipment moved out. But this is a little bit of a map of the bottom floor of the Center for Innovation. And you guys have already approved the construction and some of the general contractor work that's happening on the bottom level of the Center for Innovation. And so where it says Kirkwood Academy classrooms in the blue box, those are the 4 classrooms that are being constructed. 2 of those comprise the storm shelter that you also know was an unexpected build for us at the Center for Innovation. So after we acquired the property, the legislature had made a decision that buildings that had ed occupancy would need to have a storm shelter. And so that's been in the process of being constructed. Here, if you drive by, you can see the big hole that's been bored into the ground, and you see the storm shelter there in that space now. So there's 4 classrooms there. And then in the orange box, this visual probably looks familiar to you from when we were here in November and talked about the Dream Accelerator, about where that would be located. Right now, that's mostly storage in that space. But as we come back and revisit that idea tonight, I just want you to have a visual of where those things would, where they would live. So before I hand it off to my teammates here, just kind of the 3 big chunks of the presentation that we're going to talk to you tonight, or the objectives, as the slide said, is really first immersive experiences. Eliza is going to share some more information on those, but just to kind of frame your thinking, you think about what we did with Visiting Author Illustrator this year and those kind of in and out experiences that we can provide to our students. Kirkwood Academies, this is one that we haven't spent time talking to you about previously, but connects back to, of course, a lot of those themes that we heard from the FMP 2.0 planning process is important, and also matches our student interest and probably job market need. And so we want to continue to look for some experiences there that help serve our students. And then finally, we'll spend some time this evening talking about the partnership with Junior Achievement and our request to construct the Dream Accelerator on the bottom floor to help our students prepare for that path of what's next. So with that, I'm going to flip to the next slide here and then let Eliza chat. I'll just sit down instead of waiting in line and then come back up.
Perfect. That sounds great. Good evening. So I'm going to talk about some of the immersive experiences that we have already had here over at our Center for Innovation, and things that are kind of in the works for yet this year and in the future. Several of you had the opportunity to come and visit us earlier this year when we had our Art and Literacy Day with the visiting author for 2nd grade. And so that was a really fun opportunity for all 2nd graders across the district over the course of 3 sessions to come together and listen to our visiting author and illustrator. They engaged in writing activities. They heard a lot of different stories, and they made some beautiful artwork with murals that was inspired by the illustrator that we had here. And so our students had a really nice time being able to engage with their peers across the district, to be able to get to see adults that they typically don't see, and to interact with other members of our community, to really have a great experience here with Art and Literacy Day. We had so much success with that is something that we will be continuing. As you're familiar in the district, we've always sponsored a visiting author or a visiting illustrator, and so that's what we're going to continue to commit to, but we're going to put that experience in second grade and collaborate more with our art teachers, our physical education teachers, our music teachers, our teacher librarians to really bring that to be an immersive experience for second grade where they can collaborate and get together and just, make that experience a little bit more robust than what we've been able to do just in the specific buildings. Again, this early winter, we did have that fourth grade art show that was here where students all worked together in their own buildings to make those wonderful collages that I think just got finished, Kristen, and are ready to be hung at the Center for Innovation. And so that was a nice opportunity for us to have that space, and where students and families came and the community came and were able to see the wonderful artwork that the kids have been working on and collaborating on throughout the year. And the one that I am super excited to share with you guys today is we haven't landed on a name yet. We have about 6 options, and so we just need to narrow down what this experience is going to be. But what I really want you to come away with is a process that we're building out for these immersive experiences that we hope will then land in every one of our elementary grades. And so we are working on a pilot right now. We've had 2 meetings. We have 3 more scheduled before our events that are happening in May. But we have 7 fourth grade teachers across the district from 7 different buildings that represent the different regions of our district that are coming together, and we're planning an event that culminates the work of science and social studies in fourth grade. So they've taken their big concepts and their essential questions, and we're putting them together in just a real hands-on experience where they're learning about, it's around like conservation of water and how the land and all the different parts in our community. So we're really focusing around the river and what would happen if the river were to flood. If the river were to flood, how would healthcare come into play? What would happen to transportation? And we're just having all these different experiences that kids are going to go through to figure out what would happen if this event were to happen here in our community. However, it is being 95% planned by those teachers that have had great ideas. We knew that there are ones, just as of now, that are really innovative and had shown a lot of interest in this. And they're starting to think just way outside of the traditional box and doing things that they typically cannot do within their classroom because they're confined with space, materials, the brain power, just the ability for our teachers to be able to collaborate across buildings and think outside of what we traditionally do in order to provide some of these real hands-on experiences. And so we're super excited to have all fourth graders at 7 buildings this May come together for this culminating experience, learning. The elementary curriculum team and I are kind of behind the scenes watching the process that the teachers are engaging in so that we can replicate that in other grade levels. So what our future hope for this project is that grade level teachers will be able to submit ideas of like, this is a way that we think that we could take these learning targets in this subject area and have this experience for kids to engage in. And then our hope eventually is that then those are practices that teachers feel like they can take back to their classroom and think outside of the traditional model that we utilize. One thing that we've done the last school year, it was a pilot for BizTown, and this year we've made it through, I think in 2 weeks we'll have our 5th of 6 of our hexes go through. So we have almost everybody in 6th grade going through BizTown, which is held at the Center for Innovation, and each of those 6th grade feeders come through for a day and experience BizTown, which is the event is the culmination of what they've learned in their BizTown hex back at the building, and it's really fun to see. So if you guys haven't had an opportunity to see BizTown yet with the 6th graders after they've had that full hex session of the learning, it's been really fun to see them take on these roles of how they would work in a city. And so they have a mayor, they have a radio station, and they're going through all these different simulations. They love it when they get the chance to shop. That's their favorite part. They don't want to give their cards away because they want to keep doing it. But it's really fun to see how mature they are and that they're starting to interact in this as a citizen and how they may. selfishly have my own sixth grader who's currently in Biztown, and she's telling me about all these different roles. And she's like, Mom, do you know you have to pay insurance even if you don't want to? And it's like, you do have to do that. She's like, and Mom, did you know how much cars cost? Yes, I did. So when you ask me if you can have my car when you're 16 and my answer is no, well, you know why. So it's fun to just get to see that. And then this experience is great for them to get to have that culminating one. Lucas and Carmen and team put on a fantastic high school registration event late winter, early spring for all of our eighth graders, where we had our high school students come and talk about just the different pathways and the different courses that they could engage in. The high schoolers even went back and were like, what else can we do? We loved this opportunity. So we've called on them to help us back at Biztown. And so it's just fun to see them become just leaders again within our system of supporting our kids. So that was another really great event to get the kids excited about the courses that are available to them in all of our high schools. The College and Career Fair is an event that is at the Center for Innovation. Design Dash is happening on the 16th. And so that is another event that we're excited to partner with Don Bolus and the University of Iowa to be able to create this event where students are being innovative and entrepreneurs and get that mindset to start to learn how that could be something that they're interested in. AP testing is going to start occurring here just in the spring in May. At the Center for Innovation, and then some other assessments with the test of engineering, science, and math. So these are just what we currently have planned at our Center for Innovation. And as I, spoke a little bit more about the elementary, of just some ideas of how we want to continue to expand that experience for our kids in Iowa City.
Eliza did a great job. I was curious to know her knowledge of some of those secondary experiences. Fantastic job, Eliza. One of the things Superintendent Degner touched on that may be new information for you tonight, we have been in conversations with Kirkwood Community College about how we can continue to partner with Kirkwood, but how we may be able to take on some of the endeavors that they participate in with our students, how we can bring them back into our district. So I'm going to kind of touch on three different things, and our goal is to start on many of these beginning next year. Beginning next year, and you can see obviously the 25-26 plans in addition to what we see in 2 years. We took a look, first of all, at the number of our students that are involved in the regional center in 2 separate healthcare academies. We know, according to Zello, which is the student interest survey that our students take each and every single year, we know that our community partnerships, we know also the high popularity of some of those careers also lends itself to healthcare. So we took all that into account, and we're rolling out 2 different healthcare academies in the lower level of the CFI beginning next year. So again, we've had beginning conversations with Carmen, Matt, Chase, and I with Kirkwood about how we can hold that up here within our building. Obviously, we've got great plans of how we can start this next year, but one of the things that Matt highlighted was the convenience for some of our students, but maybe not the convenience of others, to attend the regional center. For some of our students, it's very easy. For some of our students, that's a barrier that may not be able to afford them the opportunity to take part in some of these classes. So we're looking to hold pretty consistent with that schedule for next year, but in the future years, how can we hold that at the same time frame of our school day so transportation no longer becomes a barrier, so we can get students here no matter what opportunities they do or do not have. So real excited about the academies to start with 2 in the healthcare field and then roll out education, which again, high popularity area according to our Zello, and the fact that we have the university and we're all educators here, why not bring some of them right back in? Next up is a 2-year degree. We're looking to pilot this first year. People that were in our roles previous, this was not a new topic that just began as conversations this year. This was actually conversation that's been in the midst for years. Nick, when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Nick's like, yeah, Diane Schumacher and I talked through this. We've got actually a plan about how this can look. Fantastic. Speaking from a personal experience, my niece attends a school district around us, and the fact that she's going to leave high school with a high school diploma as well as a 2-year degree is phenomenal. So the fact that we can hold that within our district, I think we're going to open up opportunities more so than maybe our students at the regional center have been able to participate in. So really excited about that opportunity. And then lastly is adult education. We know that there's a need within our community. We know that there was a Center center that had to close in the last couple of years and how we can bring those back within our campus. So looking at the adult English language learners classes as an opportunity for next year. High school completion, we know that some of our students phase out of our system or age out of our system after they turn 21. But also, we have some students that drop out of our system as well. So we want to make sure that we're not only educating students beginning in grade kindergarten, but also those students that maybe did not experience success the first time around. How can we afford the opportunity to get them the success that they need through the high school completion courses? So real excited about the opportunities that are down there. It's been great planning with our colleagues from Kirkwood about how we can foot these up within the structure that they have built within the regional center, but knowing the popularity of not only Iowa City students as well as our local districts, we know that this is going to be extremely popular, and how can we promote it to get even more students involved? All right, so next I'm going to turn it over to Nate Klein, who has been a great partner with us from Junior Achievement.
Thanks for having us. Hello again. It's been a few months since I was last here, and I just want to say thank you to the directors. We also have representatives from our Junior Achievement team here, our President, Christine Landa, Executive Vice President, Aaron Kurtz, and 5 members of our JA board. And I say that to say this is a partnership and investment that we have made over the last 40 years in partnership with Iowa City School District. And it has been an exciting thing to see evolved over time. And I think this particular part of the journey has been over a year long in the making, and talking about what are the possibilities for the Pathway to Purpose. And so it started with a conversation with Superintendent Degner and several others, talking about what is possible and what you had invested in already at the CFI, and what we could bring to the table as partners. As you heard from Eliza and Lucas, many other partners, and I know there's some people talking from the community about not investing in just one. And I think that's the great thing about this, is it's not mutually exclusive to just what's happening with Junior Achievement. It's how do we all work together for kids and provide them opportunities to not only see their future, but to see what the dreams are possible. So tonight I'll talk a little bit about the content and curriculum that we already have in place, and working specifically with Eliza and her team on what that looks like. If you remember back to October when we last came, there was a much more robust plan. And then as the team talked to the educators, there are many things already happening. So we didn't need to necessarily do everything JA right away because of the great things that are already happening. So talking about that. The experiential learning, again, if you have not been to a JA BizTown, we have a volunteer opportunity for you in May. And if you want to see some students in action, it's really great. Talking a little bit about the instructional models, and maybe most specifically what we're hearing, not just from y'all, but all of our school districts that we're working with, is this focus on work-based learning. And the charge at the state level to make sure that students are ready for whatever happens after their experience here at Iowa City or any other school district as well. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Why this really makes sense for us is when we look at the portrait of a graduate that y'all had put together during the COVID time, and the competencies that are really core to what Junior Achievement is about as well, they are really aligned. We may use different words, but they are synonyms in the same. And if I think back to my own high school experience, a lot of these things happened in my extracurricular and co-curricular activities. I was a unique person that was both a dance captain for show choir and a football captain. I had unique friend groups that didn't mix all the time well together, but these are the things I learned on the field and in the dance room. I didn't always think I learned them in the classroom. I learned some very good technical skills. And now what we're talking about is providing these opportunities, because not every single student is going to be able to do those co-curricular or extracurricular activities. How do we make sure that these competencies, these work-based learning skills, when they walk across the stage, are something that they have access to as well? So from a content and curriculum perspective, like I said before, we've really focused in this first phase on kindergarten and first grade, and focusing on those career readiness opportunities. I think I talked a little bit last time. You wouldn't necessarily have a student not do anything in math until they start geometry in 8th grade. Yet we do that sometimes with work readiness and financial literacy. And so starting students off earlier in some of those opportunities to learn about choices and needs and wants, and maybe talking about IPERS in like middle school, maybe not in the kindergarten age group as well. So kindergarten and first grade, looking at that. As we think about some of those middle and high school opportunities, there are going to be more volunteer opportunities. So talking with Eliza and her team, having those instead of a JA volunteer coming in at kindergarten and first grade, they being teacher-led, really aligning with their standards for the Iowa standards, making sure that it is not something added on top of, but rather supplementing and bolstering what they already have. Then in middle school, you heard about BizTown. I've actually had some other experiences where students, a particular student here in Iowa City Schools named Sam, who didn't want to go on the shopping experience because he was the CFO of the media company, and he was very concerned a bill was going to come in while he was shopping. And he was concerned he wasn't going to be able to pay payroll. And that's a sixth grader talking about payroll, and I don't think I was talking about that for many moons later. So it's a really great immersive experience, and it really sets up some of these other JA experiences along the way, because it's not just those 3 hours of magic that happen. It's the 10 to 12 weeks beforehand working with your educators to inspire students to have some of those choice-filled opportunities. So in 7th grade, talking about the future, this is the time that students are thinking about jobs to pay for Eliza's first car that they're going to give, or the other things that they want to buy with their money that they're earning. So how do we teach them skills like the value of a handshake, a first impression, a resume, what that looks like for teenagers as well. And then Finance Park. For those of you that have grown up and had the opportunity and maybe the privilege for your parents to talk about finances in the house, I think it's really great. I grew up with a lot of privileges, and that wasn't necessarily one of them. I think people think it is modeled after behavior, and sometimes it falls on the school district to teach some of those skills and immerse students that maybe don't have those role models in their own home or in their own sphere of influence. And so this JA Finance Park opportunity is really a great chance for students to get some of that hands-on experience within the future, having a capstone opportunity at the CFI to walk hand in hand with mentors to talk about, hey, if you have kids, they cost money. There is an insurance. If you make $50,000, you don't actually take home $50,000. And if you're an educator, and I'm sorry for the educators, you're probably not getting 2 jet skis in your first job. And so what do those like reality check moments really look like for students and providing those opportunities as well? And I think the biggest then shift is to talk about the 9th grade or the high school experience. And talking with Superintendent Degner, Carmen, Lucas, and Eliza, there's this big focus at the state level about post-secondary readiness. And how do we as a partner with Iowa City School Districts come alongside you and provide students that opportunity? Because at a state level, only about 25% of students on average are getting these opportunities. And how do we provide that for 100% of students? So no matter what they want to do after school, whether it's changing their job 7 times, they have some of those core skills that you can prove when they walk across the stage that are necessary. So we'll continue to do the JA Career Inspire event, where we bring in over 3,500 students over the course of a couple days, and all of the Iowa City students, 9th graders, to explore hands-on experiences in a course of a very short period of time, just a couple hours, 7 different pathways and industries. Then one of the things that we're adding on to is JA Career Success. I have a box full of fun over there that is really exciting, but it's all of the materials that students will experience over the course of 7 sessions to learn about career success, what it means to have an integrated opportunity to walk in as an employee. And this fits in, and Lucas will talk a little bit about this later, this fits in and aligns with the state's requirement for work-based learning. It's a simulated work-based learning experience. So that's kind of the partnership with the JA Dream Accelerator, is how do we provide some of that curriculum on the front end as well. And then bringing them back with Finance Park Advance. So you get that first job out of college. Let's talk about that in 8th grade and in 9th grade as you start to articulate a little bit more what you might want to do in that first career. What are some of those decision points you'll have to make? Maybe it's post-trade school, post-college, in midlife as well. And then there is a credential, and we're really excited. Over this last week, we were approved at the state level for the JA Essential Work Skills Credential. This is something that in tandem with these experiences will allow you to not only check the box from work-based learning for the district, it will also give students the opportunity to say that I have mastery in these various competencies as well that align with your profile of a graduate. And we'll talk a little bit about this. I know Carmen and others have been working really hard. How do we get some of our high school upper class students to then volunteer in these opportunities? We had an entire room full of BPA students volunteering at BizTown. And so I think it's a really powerful experience for your upper class students to have walked through some of these JA opportunities and then to be able to give back in maybe the schools that they participated in or are alums of as well. What I know very important, as I've seen a few presentations and some really cool slides and graphs, is that you all are interested in the outcomes and the data. And I think it's important for us as a partner to provide that to you. Don't just count on us to say, hey, this is a really cool thing. It happened and kids are happy. And so we already do this currently with all of our programs. We do a pre and post tests, and we provide that information specifically tied back to the Iowa core standards and how that is moving the meter for you. What this expanded partnership is going to allow us to do is look at attitudinal shifts. And maybe not necessarily in cell phone policy, which I think would be a really exciting follow-up conversation Lucas gets to have, but more looking at what do people and students feel about their finances? How do they feel about their work readiness opportunities? And how do we make those connection points from kindergarten all the way up through their high school experience? And so we'll be able to track through data sharing agreements as this goes through what that looks like for students, and then be able to take information from Zello and others to say, this is what we want to do differently at these different grades, and provide you with an annual report on what that really looks like. This is just a reminder of the Dream Accelerator. As I said, this has been a journey. We've been there a couple different times with our staff and staff as well. Director Williams and Director Finch joined us for a 24-hour whirlwind tour after the last time I was here. It was pretty intense. And it was pretty magical, an experience that we all got to walk through the Dream Accelerator, identifying our strengths, talking about and learning about titans of business across the United States, allowing us to reality check our own financial situations, and engaging with opportunities where students can see for themselves what is possible. And I think that's what's really special about not only a partnership with Kirkwood or Junior Achievement or others, is how do we provide students that opportunity to open their eyes to the possibilities? And if we can open their eyes even earlier with many of the experiences that you all are already doing, it allows them to see what is possible, to dream, if you will, in the basement, or as we hope to call it, the dream level. So I'm going to turn it back over to Lucas. He's going to talk a little bit about this performance scorecard as well.
I know there was a request at our last meeting to talk through the Iowa School Performance Profile in more detail and kind of our next steps based upon our last presentation in November, I think is when it was. So I've grayed out the college credit. So what we're looking for in this slide and the next two is how we fulfill parts of the requirements through the Iowa School Performance Profile. So if you remember, there was that section about post-secondary readiness. And one of the most alarming graphs that we showed our administrators when we first prepared the presentation, as well as shared with all of you, and compared to the other UEN districts across the state of Iowa, we were dead last. So the post-secondary readiness accounts for all three of these different items and how the percentage of our 12th graders before they graduate that are participating in these three different facets. So two of the pieces that Nate touched on just a little bit ago is the work-based learning, as well as the IRC, or what we call the industry recognized credential. So again, the post-secondary readiness, when we would take a look at the report card, accounts for 11.1% of the score. That's the same as proficiency for math, same as proficiency for reading, same as the growth, same as science. All these things are equally weighted in the term of how we are assessed from the state of Iowa. So we're excited about the opportunity. We are focusing and targeting our 9th graders to participate in this experience. And through, and as I'll show on the next particular slide, through this experience, the learning in the classroom, the Dream Accelerator itself, and then the post-accelerator experience with the assessments, our students by the end of that will have not only work-based learning fulfillment from the state of Iowa, but also the industry recognized credential. Now that seems very check the box-ish, and it does fulfill those two pieces, but we also think it's going to be extremely immersive and extremely engaging experience for our kids as well. That's going to really get them excited about their next opportunities and how they can fulfill some of the other experiences throughout high school in their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years. So again, this is how we see the vision for the Dream Accelerator. Again, I talked about the first piece is the learning in the classroom. Nate mentioned his heavy briefcase that's back there. I am fortunate enough to have one in my office as well, with all the materials that the teachers will use within their classroom to get students ready. It's 7 different sessions that get the students prepared about all the different pieces about what it means to either own a business, be an employee in itself, but get them ready for college and career after high school. The next is the Dream Accelerator itself, the experience that the students will participate in at the lower level of the CFI. One of the things we want to be creative with is how that accelerator space can be used, but also while students are over there, can they participate in other experiences while outside of there? So to maximize the time that the students are available for us in that particular area. And the last of which is the industry recognized credential. So Nate had mentioned recently approved by the state of Iowa, which is fantastic, and that's also because it's tied to the industry recognized credential from the state that allows us to count it also as a work-based learning. So again, we see this again as not only a one-time experience for our students, but Nate highlighted it's about the learning that occurs before and it's the learning that occurs after to really tie in the entire experience for our kids.
All right, I'll kind of pick it back up with the timeline here and then take us to the end for your questions. But one thing I did want to mention when Lucas was talking about the post-secondary readiness portion, including work-based learning and industry recognized credentials, we can only count students once in each of these areas. So they could earn 5 work-based learning experiences. They could earn 5 industry recognized credentials. But as far as scoring in the state, it is really that the student only gets counted in, we only get points for the work-based learning experience. We only get points for the industry recognized credential if they complete one of those. And so it is advantageous to us to make sure all of our students have an experience that counts in each of those areas. You may also remember from the college credit end, that was one where we were performing better because of some of the experiences we have aligned. But work-based learning, industry recognized credentials, those were 2 major need areas for us. And so again, we do need to try to get that opportunity to every single one of our students, and they can of course engage in more of those opportunities, but as far as scoring goes on the Iowa School Performance Profile, it only count for their achievement of that goal one time. So finally, the timeline specific to the Dream Accelerator, which of course is the action item I mentioned here earlier to you, includes what we hope is your board approval here this evening, and then we go into a design and planning portion along with all of the things that encompass that in this summer with the concepts, costs, bids, permits. We would look to provide the facility staffing in the fall. And if you remember, or you'll see on the next slide, that's really where Junior Achievement is stepping up as a partner to provide some of the staffing for the facility that'll help us facilitate those learning experiences. And then as we approach the winter, we would look for construction to reach conclusion, and we would look to have our grand opening there after the first of the year. This would allow us to try to have those freshmen engage in the experience yet next year, and so be included in next year's reporting period for the Iowa School Performance Profile. So wanted to kind of walk through what the timeline would look like, and then finally the cost. So you remember when Nate was talking about the original overall 5-phase plan that we showed, and I think there's still some aspects of that we're hopeful to do, but it was a much larger price tag. I believe that 5-phase plan got us towards $5.5 or $6 million. Tonight we're bringing back really just the phase 1 of that approach, and would like to step into the first phase of that includes roughly $1 million commitment over the next 2 fiscal years. To then construct that Dream Accelerator. Of course, that also, as the team has also talked about, there's some classroom components and classroom curriculum and delivery. Along with that, you have a more extensive price breakdown kind of on the next slide as an appendix that shows some of the technology investment included with this to be able to do the Dream Accelerator. So the financial cost to the district is that $2.1 million that would come from FMP funds. You guys know that we're going to bring back overall kind of leftover FMP 2.2 projects or projects that we've had in the air and asked for your commitment to. So the reason this one is coming out of order this evening with those other ones is because of the potential to have this opportunity up and going for our students next year ahead of that school to be included in that school performance profile piece. Roughly, the district has about $100 million left in its FMP plan, and so this is asking for $2 million of that $100 million. In turn, Junior Achievement of Eastern Iowa is investing in staffing and programming support while also bringing in $1.5 million in asset and software, intellectual property and design. It is their program, it's their design, and that's something we wouldn't be able to touch without their partnership and without the intellectual property behind that. And so that's the breakdown for you about what the cost structure would look like, what is presented in the action item, and I can come back, of course, to that time if there's follow-up questions, but is not an actual commitment of funds this evening. It's a letter of intent that said we would continue down this path. And so if that's a question that board members also have, it's not tonight saying we're going to turn around, write a check, but it would be that you're going to have items that would come to your agenda with kind of the assumption of your approval moving forward if we engage in that letter of intent. So like you can see, the appendix slide there, the overall cost, and then finally the timeline on the Dream Accelerator piece. But I think, as you can tell, the team is very proud of a lot of the work that's happened, and it's not just this team's work. As our CFI leadership team has met throughout the year, and Eliza talked all the way back to the beginning about one of the core pieces for us was also helping try to influence instruction throughout our buildings, and by getting a team of teachers together and kind of going through a project-based approach, introducing a problem, having them design experience around it, I think we're on to something really strong and positive on that end. Another theme that we wanted to commit to was something that reaches all kids. We didn't want the center to be something where some kids had an opportunity to experience the activities we designed here, and I think we've achieved that with a lot of the experiences that we have designed here, and that they're either all kids will experience them or they're accessible to all students, that it's not just for some kids. And so proud of that aspect and proud of that work, and finally happy to turn it over to you for questions or comments this evening.
I'll let you guys use this one. I guess I'll go first. A couple comments and then a few questions. I know that when we were getting ready to talk about this, I was thinking of the kind of the Dream Accelerator piece. That's the hot topic, I think, right? That I was looking at it from that's like a real differentiator for us from other places, and I'm curious as to how we could, like, what is our opportunity to not necessarily bring people in to come enroll in our district just so they can go to the Dream, but bringing people who are attending other districts in, like, is that a possibility, and how we can do that financially? And I wasn't thinking about all of these other things, which are really cool, which seems like they're also differentiator. But I had a conversation today with my boss, whose kids go to Benton Community, not the biggest school district. They have great partnerships. She was talking about her kid he was a little entrepreneur and owning a business, and I don't know, it must be BizTown or something, right? And so I wasn't clear how spread it already is, all right, in terms of some of that partnership. So I think being able to kind of do more is important, but I think all of these, like if you look at the whole thing in total and all the different experiences through, K-12, I think that's important. So I would like to talk about, what's the possibility of bringing in, money essentially, right, from folks coming in. And then maybe a question for Matt is kind of just talk about, and you touched on it a little bit, the idea of something centralized to stand up versus trying to stand something up in all of our various schools.
Great. I think there are 4 questions in there. So
Maybe.
I'm going to start with number 1. That's all right. So I'm a Benton dad, and so I can appreciate that. And what you see, so we have partnerships with about 20 different school districts. To be very clear, we do a lot of those experiences, whether it's BizTown or Finance Park, with many of them. Dream Accelerator, this would only be the second in the nation that would be available, and it would be the only one that would be stood up in a school. Now, we have talked with Lucas, Eliza, Carmen, and Superintendent Degner about this a little bit. There are opportunities, if y'all would choose, for some of those school districts to come experience the Dream Accelerator, and I would recommend that there would be a cost associated with that to help offset some operating costs going forward as well. That is y'all's decision. As you are very well aware, maybe more than most in the public school has become competitive. And so how do you have something that attracts and retains families and students? And this is, I think, what some of the team and what we believe would be able to do that. So I think that answered at least 2.5 of those questions. So
pretty good.
Yeah, thanks.
Director Eyestone, you kind of mentioned something centralized for all, right? And so I think there's always kind of benefits, and I think, to be honest, there's challenges with it, right? And anytime we do something centralized, of course, you heard us talk a little bit about some of the challenges with timing, that happens at Kirkwood, or transportation out to Kirkwood. We believe with some of those Kirkwood academies, we'd have an ability to be in more control of the time that the classes are offered. 7:30, while sits outside of most of our secondary student school day, is almost impossible for a student to arrive anywhere early enough to get district-provided transportation to get to the regional center. So backing that up towards the start of the school day could be some opportunities with us for future academy classes where a kid could get to their home high school and then we could transport them to the Center for Innovation. It would in turn take up a different footprint of their school day, right? And so there's going to be trade-offs of those different things. And so that was one of the reasons we moved it to outside of the school day with the regional center and advocated for an earlier start time. The other centralized nature of it is, of course, cost, right? It's the community commenter asked about an auto shop. To build 3 auto shops or 4 auto shops throughout the school district, expensive. Not something a district couldn't invest in. There are large public urban school districts that have auto shops in all of their campuses, right? But that is a different scale of investment to do an auto shop in each of those campuses, and also teaching investment, right? Is the teacher FTE then to teach the classes with those. So the centralization of it also kind of protects us from student interest because we can then create a little bit more efficiencies with the kids that are interested in certain experiences because we can put them all in the same class rather than having maybe a 13 student section at West, a 25 student section at City, and 2 kids at Liberty, right? And you might be able to do something where you can offer that into 2 sections district wide rather than 3 across the 3 buildings. So there's some synergy in the efficiency along with the equipment that is provided for that, and then also just the accessibility for kids, right? I mean, I think we can tailor things then that are directly accessible for the students in Iowa City.
Okay, I got kind of 2 other ones that go together. So if we did bring people in and did some sort of like fee for service, I agree, we should charge money for that. Does that go into like the general fund as miscellaneous income?
Yeah, we would, I mean, I let Adam expand on that if he wants to, but yeah, we'd be able to collect those funds and then repurpose that, yep.
Sorry, it's on the wrong side for me. Correct. Anything that we would receive would be coded as miscellaneous income and by rule would go to the general fund and would increase our authority.
Okay, awesome. I know that we've had conversations in the past about leveraging, one pot for the general fund. I think we talked about it in terms of like solar panels and things like that, right? So I do like the opportunity there, which then kind of leads to my next question. Can we talk a little bit about some of the ongoing costs, or as some of the emails that we've gotten in, like the impact to the general fund that may be occurring with some of this stuff? I appreciate the junior team performing or providing some of the staffing, but I do think there is some cost there associated with it to the general fund. And can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Adam, I'm going to start with transportation and then ask you to talk a little bit about insurance around technology and how that process works as far as an ongoing cost. Really the ongoing staffing costs, that's the part of the partnership with Junior Achievement. Of course, there would be some staff time taken on supervision of our students that are here to provide that experience, but that is time we're already invested in. From a transportation end, some folks had asked that. To bus every freshman to the Center for Innovation, it would cost us $5,000. So that's when we look at how many bus routes it would take and the length of that trip. It would cost $5,000. And so you can tell from our immersive experiences, we've already committed some of those funds to provide those different experiences this year. So then again, depending on how often we would transport kids, you can kind of use that as a frame of reference for what a whole grade level costs to transport students. So again, the visiting author illustrator day, it would have roughly been the same thing for our elementary students, probably a little bit more actually for elementary students because you're picking them up at so many different campuses, even if you could try to get a couple of the schools on one bus. So that's kind of an ongoing operational consideration for sure, but maybe not the high number that there were maybe some assumptions surrounding that. So Adam, you want to talk about maybe ongoing costs once technology is purchased and how we handle that?
Yep, in terms of the technology itself that would be over there, that is covered under our break fix insurance that we have for not just technology, but all district equipment that is electrical in nature. So computers, most other things that would be over there would be covered as well. And so that's a premium that we pay out of the management fund. And then we make the fix. And our labor and any parts that we have to pay for, any replacement costs that we pay for are reimbursed by the insurer. And that actually goes into the general fund by rule. So that's something that, we pay that premium out of the management fund, but there's no additional cost to the district for maintenance, repair, replacement, that sort of thing. One thing I would note is that the deployment at the CFI for these projects would not be substantial enough to impact our premium at all. So.
See if I can organize my thoughts here a little bit. This is a very large project and requires, considerable expansion of my ability to grasp everything that's being proposed. But I do want to make a couple of observations. One, as I understand it, we're proposing a significant, substantial expansion of our instructional offering to students that will include every student in the district. This is a very inclusive undertaking. Is that in agreement with what your thinking is, Matt and directors?
Yes, I think that's the concept, Director Eastham, is that every student would have the opportunity to experience in that, and that it would positively impact a student performance measure for the whole district by including every single student in the district with this experience.
Okay. So to my thinking, or the way I'm trying to approach the cost associated, is that is an important thing for me to consider in a way. That this is an investment in every student in the district. Even though I love the music program, I also realize that investing in the music program is not investing in every student in the district. I'll continue to invest in it, or want to invest in it.
Good clarification. He's not wrong.
All right. So that to me is an important consideration in looking at the capital cost involved here. Also, the capital cost along the same line, I could build or support building auto shops in the high schools, but I would rather support building auto training for the entire district through this proposal. Can you say anything now about the what has been researched or at least approached in the research method terms about the effectiveness of this of the Dream Accelerator experience itself? If you know more about that, I'd appreciate your comments.
Yeah, so Rocky Mountain is the one that the two directors visited as well, is only in their year and a half of it. So they are still working through the data that is associated with it. I think what they are seeing is students' positive experience about understanding the world of work and the job opportunities that are available. And so about 89 to 90% of the students, and I can send this information to Superintendent Degner to send out as well, are saying that it's a positive experience to explore different opportunities. I think what's unique about Iowa City Schools then, and I think we even had Adam talk about this, is how then you utilize it. If it was just utilized as a 90-minute to 2-hour experience, I wouldn't recommend making that investment. If it's going to be utilized like we're proposing utilizing it with front-end curriculum and then back-end connecting with guidance counselors and others to then take what students are interested in to have them explore the academies and pathways that you all have spent a lot of time working on, that allows students to jumpstart some of their ideology or some of their ideas of what's going to happen as well. So part of the data sharing agreement is to make sure that we have data that supports you as well. But that is a longer answer to they don't yet have what the efficacy of that particular 90-minute to 2-hour experience is. It's how do we buffer it on both ends to make it worthwhile for the students and for the district.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, that this approach with this technology is too new to have the chance to have extensive research into outcomes yet, which makes it an investment upon the idea and where that idea came from and what supported it and why Junior Achievement decided to go ahead with this approach.
Yeah, so the idea came out of the business community, many that are here today, asking the question, how do we accelerate, and what Mr. Orvik talked about, how do we accelerate students' understanding of the world of work and what possibilities are available? And so when they had many different donors come to the table, they built this idea from scratch. And that's, I think, the investment in intellectual property is that. It is the business community, and I think what we're hearing from the state and the governor as well is how do we have, that's why it's 11.1%, work-based learning opportunities, these opportunities for students to learn beyond the classroom so that they can apply those math and English skills to the world of work. And so that's where it was kind of born out of, in the hopes that students would open up the possibilities of what is possible, and then the districts being able to take that information and saying, this is what we have available to you to continue that learning, whether it's right across the way in the Kirkwood learning classes, or it's back at the respective high schools and learning in those academies as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we're just going down the line, which means I'm next. Thank you, all four of you, for the presentation. Again, the focus of the emails that we've gotten this past week is the Dream Accelerator. I don't want to get lost in that conversation, the other really amazing things that are going to happen at the CFI. The Kirkwood Academies, I'm so excited for, especially the potential to add on to healthcare in different academies. I've been saying for a few years now that I really hope we can get that CDA Academy up and running, the Child Care Development Associate credential, because not only does that help us fill a need locally in town with training up qualified childcare providers, which we're in desperate need of, it's a great pathway to eventually a 4-year teaching degree, and I think fits really nicely with our Grow Your Own, like getting our students interested in teaching. With respect to the Dream Accelerator, I was one of the directors that got to go out to Denver. We talked about that experience. I got to see students firsthand engage with the accelerator. I engaged with the accelerator. It was really, the students all really lit up when they went through, and just my data point is that it seemed to be an experience that was meaningful to them. And I think it's one of the things you brought up, Director Eastham, it's the front end prep that we're gonna do is much different, and that's, I think, the slide, I don't know, 10, sorry, slide 10 is kind of incorporated. It's not just a 90-minute experience, it's all of this stuff that goes into it. But I don't want us to forget, too, about the back-end prep that we talked about. CFO Kurth was with us, and when you go through the Dream Accelerator, they download the data about what you're interested in, and then transmitting that to our high school guidance counselors, and so that as these 9th graders prepare to move through the next 3 years of school, their guidance counselor can work with them to figure out what kind of path they should take through the rest of their 3 years at our school. As we stand up these Kirkwood Academies, as we stand up opportunities to get an AA degree, having that information, I think, is just critical to integrating all of these opportunities that we're providing our students. So I mention that because I do think that this is a good program and it's going to provide great experiences for our kids. However, what is most compelling to me is this ISPP component of all of it, which I just can't. I mean, I remember when we got our ISPP results out and we had a meeting, and I'm looking at Brady because I remember very clearly some of the comments or thoughts that we both had. But we can. The state has set the rubric for how we're going to get ranked. And if you will recall, the way that they're doing it is it's not only Iowa City, right? It was all the urban schools. All of a sudden, all need improvement. And we had various thoughts about why that might be. And I'm not going to go off on that tangent. But I don't think we can ignore it, right? Like, yeah, would I love to put an auto body shop in city? Sure, I would. That would be awesome. But you know what I would love more is to make sure that City High isn't a school in need of improvement because we are not complying with the state's metrics of what a school in need of improvement is. And if we can outlay $2 million of capital funds, which is 2% of that total budget remaining, and make sure that we are checking these boxes that we may or may not agree with, but the state has decided are equally as important as teaching our kids how to read, I think we have to, we're almost in a situation where we have to, because then, of course, the counter to that is vouchers, which are always looming over our heads. Are we gonna be able to retain students if our high schools all need improvement because we are not providing opportunities that the state tells us that we have to? And I don't think we will. So again, the amount of funds sounds huge, $2 million, but it's somehow, I think, almost miraculous that the admin team has figured out how to devote capital improvement funds to meeting this need that touches upon what we have to do, that the state has said is as important as teaching kids to read, and that the general fund expenses are relatively minor. I mean, if you want to talk about bang for buck, I just think this is it. And so that's why that's why I wanted to start with, I think it's a great program, because that is different than the quality of the program. I believe in the program. I think it is a great program, but it is amazing that we are going to be able to accomplish complying with these state requirements for this type of funding metric. And I want to say kudos and thank you to the admin team for coming up with such a creative solution, because we don't have the general fund money to do it. So that's my thought.
Thank you all for still standing. I don't know. Because I know you are up there because there might be questions related to slides and somebody has to move them forward. So thank you. And my question is related to one of the slides, slide 14, where we talk about the simulated work experience. Can you, maybe it's getting late and my brain is not functioning properly, but can you talk more about how the simulated work experience tie into the partnership with community members? Yeah. I'm assuming, like, is that business leaders, how those people are selected? What do our kids get to realistically see and do?
So we keep referencing like this box in the back. If Matt, you just want to show it, it's really exciting and it's very heavy. It's like a deadlift. So this is the materials. And I know we've talked about like technology, and we've talked in this meeting about technology, and there's a lot of technology. There's also things that they're physically going to touch. And I think what is important, in addition to your question, is they will have this educational experience. And part of what JA's partnership has been for 40 years with y'all is connecting with people like Elise from Hy-Vee to make sure that she comes into the classroom and supports your educators that are delivering this content and talking about what it means to get a job at Hy-Vee, and not just the integrated work experience at Orbit Boom, which is the fictitious company that is a part of this learning experience. So it's us using our FTE to engage with the community, to invite and engage people that are on our board and other community organizations that you have and the foundation has talked about, to be able to connect and bring those volunteers not only to the classroom, but also to walk alongside them at the Dream Accelerator. So there will be 3 to 5 volunteers that will be required, and that's part of what we would do, is to walk alongside students as they identify their strengths and they talk about titans of business. So to your question, like how does that meet this? How does it meet Senate File 2411 that was signed this last year by the governor? It's simulated work experience in partnership with the community, and that's what we're committing to bring to the table.
Okay, and we'll make sure that it's not just community that's guiding our students towards 4-year degrees.
Correct.
Because we have students, and talking with students, well, will this be an experience because I want to be a hair braider?
Yep.
I mean, that's an important role. Trust
Very
me,
important.
it's important.
I get it. I got a daughter that
just
has an appointment tomorrow for it, so I get it.
Yes, it's important. And I want to make sure our kids get what they're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah. So maybe Director Finch or Director Williams could talk about this, but the kind of the last thing within the Dream Accelerator is this mural that could even be done with some of the talent that is within your schools that showcases all that's possible in a community. And what we're committed to is choice-filled lives. And choice-filled lives doesn't necessarily mean that it's 4-year degree, 2-year degree. Could be the military. It could be just walking across the street and working in a job. So what we're committed to is these essential work skills that allow students to walk into the world of work or walk into the degree of their choice or to change their mind 7 different times, as what happened when I was working in higher ed as well. So it is a yes to your original question for all of those reasons.
Okay. And then this question is more to our team from slide 15. And it's tied to that action item of the letter of intent. I know Superintendent Degner, you said that we're not voting to write a check tonight. My question is then when do we vote to write a check? I mean, in this phase, when can I say, you know what, I don't like this. I don't want to vote to spend money anymore.
Well, we'd rather have you do that tonight if that's the way you feel, because really what the letter of intent establishes is the partnership between us and Junior Achievement, right, that we would continue to move forward. We wouldn't want to have a tenuous, vote or conversation every time we brought forward the next step in this process. This would be alignment from basically saying the district is committed, Junior Achievement is committed, that this is the agreement we're going to work forward from. And so then when we would bring a presentation of a purchase for, some of the technology, when we'd bring a purchase for some of the curriculum that we may need to supplement from Junior Achievement, that those things would move along. Now, every spring, we also get an MOU from Junior Achievement about, just our typical work that we do in our buildings. So you will see an MOU come to you either May, June timeframe would be typical. That would encompass even some of these other things that we've talked about in phase 1. But, really tonight, the focus of the letter of intent that you have there in front of you, the primary bulk of those costs, as you can tell, is the commitment to the Dream Accelerator. And the heaviest part of that is the technology with that. So, yes, there would be opportunities to still, vote your conscience on that moving forward. But I think in good faith as a partner with the district, we want to make sure we were clear about our intentions with that tonight.
Okay. And can you, several of the emails we have received talked about a potential conflict of interest with this and the fact that you sit on their board, Junior Achievement Board.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Happy to address that. So I am on the Junior Achievement Board, as are several other superintendents in school districts around the state, depending on the region that Junior Achievement's serving. And I think it's valuable that our leadership team is always represented with our local partners and local community groups, whether that might be United Way or Better Together, or Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Children's Museum, Rotary. Those are all groups that we're affiliated with in different ways, whether or not we sit on the boards. But it allows our district to be a good community member and form positive relationships and to have reciprocal relationships that bring the best of our resources in our local communities to our entities. So I am on their board. Junior Achievement's a great nonprofit organization, just like other organizations that are our leadership team, and I'm sure several of you serves on boards as well. But I don't have a voting stake in this. I do have a responsibility to recommend things I think are good for the school district to you. And so that's the routine. You guys are the ones that are the ultimate decision makers about those funds that get committed for the district.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question. This is probably for Matt. So I'm interested in hearing just a little bit about how we provide the lessons, prior to the Dream Accelerator, because I think that part is really important. I know when I taught special ed for many years, I taught career ed forever. There's a lot of good learning there. But how are we going to do that for all the ninth graders?
Maybe I can take this, Matt. Take a drink there.
Mr. Luke.
So when we take a look, we had mentioned the 7 different lessons. So we had mentioned a class that all of our students will take. So we have our identifying a class that aligns with the standards that are already being taught within that course, and then these essential skills that will be taught within the J Career Success. So we've already started our conversations with our curriculum coordinator that oversees that curriculum and works with the teachers. So we'll be working to make sure that the staff are prepared, just like we would with any curriculum rollout, that they're prepared to teach those 7 lessons lessons and they have the appropriate training and the materials and resources that they need to do that in the classroom, in addition to the collaboration with our JA staff member. And then it's followed up obviously with the Dream Accelerator experience and then the assessments that follow after for the IRC.
Okay, I'm just, I'm very much a logistics person, so I remember this type of thing. We used to always say, oh, English 9 teachers, you can all add that to your plate and do that. So where are we going to do it?
So the course we're looking at right now is the Earth and Space Science, because there is some natural alignment with some of the standards that are taught within that course. So it's the Earth and Space Science is the course that we're looking into right now. Now that's not to say that that may not be the long-term solution or long-term decision with that. Some of the things I think the state has done that are really good things, and maybe not so much many good things, is the personal finance responsibility that the state used to require. This would have been a perfect alignment with that particular course that all students had to take in order for graduation. You know, we're not that boat anymore. So then we had to be creative with where we felt that this could align, and that Earth and Space Science is the course that we felt that aligned the most with.
Okay, thank you. That makes good sense to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate, for coming to present tonight. It was a great trip to Denver last fall. I enjoyed it very much. Eliza and Lucas, I'm just blown away with everything that you've presented tonight. I love it all. I'm just so impressed with the immersive experiences. These are the type of things that children develop their core memories. Like they look back on those things and they will always remember them. The innovative approaches that you're taking with your teachers, the grassroots, the creativity, I love that. I love all the JA stuff, BizTone, and of course I talked about the high school registration event that we had before, and then the Kirkwood Academies, just great, the 2-year degree, and then the adult ELL and the opportunity to get a high school degree. I think that is just life-changing for some of our parents and our families. So I commend you on all of that. As I mentioned before, I volunteered to become a JA volunteer last year, and then I couldn't do it because I didn't have the time. But you know, I talked about this before. The first lesson in kindergarten for junior achievement is needs versus wants and choices. And we are the decision makers, right? We have to make a choice. We have to decide what's a need, what's a want, and what our choice is going to be, because in public school districts, there is only a finite amount of funds. And so saying yes to something unfortunately means that we might have to say no to something, right? So I guess the part that I'm stuck at is the Dream Accelerator. I love everything else. I'm just a little stuck with the Dream Accelerator, and I'm not sure that it is a need or a want. So just a couple of questions. So first of all, the Earth Space class. So some of our students take Earth Space in 8th grade. So how will that work?
Well, I wish I could give you all the exact details tonight, but you know, we talked through that question the other day. As we do have, you know, a few classrooms of students at our 3 middle schools right now that are taking that course. Our staff is very creative, and I guarantee we'll have a solution to account for those students that are in that course. Currently as an 8th grader, so they still get the chance to experience it in high school.
Okay, and the Dream Accelerator is only for 9th graders, correct? It's not for any other grade level.
Right now, we're looking at 9th grade. There's some great opportunities, as we think, in our district that Denver doesn't have because they fulfill and account for so many students. It's you know, look to expand maybe beyond the 9th grade so students can experience it more than once.
Okay, I'm just trying to kind of estimate like how many days or hours of the school year that Dream Accelerator will be used or occupied. Do you have any estimates on that?
It'd be to put around 1,000 to 1,100 students through it. It'd be about 28 days. And so based on the capacity that we would build out and what Rocky Mountain had, we would have 28 days to do that work. And so we had talked with Eliza and Lucas a little bit about what could be done on the other half while students maybe are there waiting to have that experience. And I think that's what the CFI, some of the magic of the CFI could be, is some of those other lived experiences, whether it's Finance Park or others. But short answer, 28 days, not counting snow days, of course.
And then have we reached out to other districts yet to gauge their interest?
I thought it would be a little forward of me to ask them before you all approved. But what I will say is that this has become public. Like we have talked about this. We have talked about it with other districts about the trips that we had taken before, because it is within the Junior Achievement Network. And there are other districts that are very excited about this possibility. Like I said before, every single district on that UE end and beyond is being asked, what are you doing at work-based learning, and what are those unique experiences that you're having? So I'm not a betting man, but there are conversations that could be had in partnership with y'all to talk about what that would look like, to invite other districts. And then I think just a decision for y'all, do you want to keep it unique to your own students? Or is that opening it up, and is opening up then worth those folks experiencing it? Because maybe then they just want to become Iowa City students as well. So.
That would be great. Okay, and then going back to slide number 14, the post-secondary readiness. So I'm just trying to figure out, or in my mind, picture what this process looks like. So is the experience in the Dream Accelerator, is that necessary for acquiring these credentials that that we would then use as credit for ISPP?
That's a great question. And what I love about our state is that they have ideas. And then when we present ideas to ask for like affirmation, like, does this count for this specific thing? They said, well, the district gets to decide on that. So as we've read Senate File 2411, and based on that experience that your chairperson asked about, it is that volunteer engagement experience at the Dream Accelerator and with a curriculum that then equals the simulated work experience in conjunction with the community as well. So you could come back and say, no, but that simulated work experience is with the community. It is not with the educators to do that. So those all three things combined, the classroom experience, the curriculum, plus the Dream Accelerator with volunteers and the IRC, are what we believe, in working with Lucas and Dom, one of your employees, that would equal being able to check that box, so that students can say, not only did I check the box, but I had that experience as well.
Okay, and then is there, I mean, I'm just trying to understand if it's necessary to build out a $2 million museum experience, or is it possible to do this another way, where we don't build the $2 million Dream Accelerator and use that space in our CFI for this? Is that possible?
I would think it would be. I mean, we would have to look at other options, right, Director Finch? I think we're recommended to you what we think is the most cost-effective way to probably approach this for all of our, for every single high school student to be able to have that opportunity. And so we would have to go back to the drawing board. We would have to work on another solution, because I do think we have a responsibility for the kids in our district, and for, as Director Williams talked about a little bit, just the rating our schools receive on the school performance profiles to try to figure that out. But to say, I mean, it just wouldn't be accurate to say Dream Accelerator is the only way a district could figure out a way to achieve success on that Iowa school performance profile measure. This is the one we've decided is the most effective way, we think, for the students in Iowa City to achieve that.
Yeah, and I agree it would be very nice for our students. I went through the whole process, and it is very nice. I'm just having a hard time deciding that it's a need. I think it's more of a want, and especially since we don't know what our other needs are yet, because we haven't had that fine arts assessment reported out to us yet. I mean, again, I love it all. I'm not ready to vote on this tonight. If the rest of the board is ready to vote, I will just have to be a no, because I'm not at a point where I could choose this, what I perceive as a want, over any needs that we haven't heard about yet. So, but I thank you very much. Again, I think it's all great. It just, we have to make choices.
First, I just want to comment on the performance profile. City High School came in as commendable, and got knocked down 2 levels because of not having, the amount of ELL students that were supposed to take science, and because we didn't meet standards on ELL and IEP students. Liberty came in as high performing, but did not get that because it got dinged for our ELL students not meeting proficiencies on our other scores. And West came in as commendable, but got dinged down because it did not meet the proficiency ratings on IEPs. So it's just something to come in that we do have 2 commendable and a high-performing high school in our district. First thing that I just want to mention is, go back to my notes. I really like this Kirkwood Adult Education Program. I think anybody that lives on the east side of Iowa City knows the vacuum that the center has left in that part of town. The one thing that I would ask is make sure that you're including people from the city to make sure that we have transportation for people there. I don't know how long or how late the buses run in town, but it's a very, you have to be able to get there during the evening and get home. Then I would like to commend the efforts on the Kirkwood Academy. I know the academies are what the state expects out of us when it comes to work-based learning experiences and credentials, readying students for the workforce. How do I know this? Well, last month, if anybody was paying attention, the Iowa City Home Builders Association brought a delegation of GOP legislators to look at our home building program. All of them posted it up online. It was the first time in 1.5 years on this board and maybe 10 years of living in Iowa City that I saw GOP legislators complimenting our district and our programs. Overall, I love a lot of the programs and ideas that were being floated around with junior achievement. I just don't feel that the Dream Accelerator is it. And a lot of this comes down to the cost, but Director Finch already said. But the program itself, last fall, we spent 4 months developing a policy guided by research condemning the use of screen time. Not just any kind of screen time, cell phones, tablets, Chromebooks, smartwatches, screen time in general. We spent 4 months talking about that. So now we have a proposal to stick students in front of more screens. It just seems counterintuitive for me. As the proposed junior achievement program, so the Dream Accelerator, I'm just going to call it Dream Accelerator because I don't want to put your other programs in there in my thoughts, because the surveys provide no data on actual skill building. It's 187 students that we saw. When the pre and post test survey questions are like, do you know how to budget? There should be questions about budgeting. The program has not been evaluated or approved under the Every Student Succeeds Act, requirement that we have for all of our other educational technology that comes through Title I funding, is through using Title I funding. Lexia is a program that we use in our schools that has been published to leading to positive outcomes in multiple platforms and publications. I can bring that to the table when I talk to the community about buying technology to the school. I do that often because I hear a complaint about Lexia all the time, or not enough, that I can be like, hey, see, Lexia, all this data to back it. I'm a data-driven person, so I want to see data. Now, that is something that I can't bring to the table at Dream Accelerator. I know that arts and athletics lead to better outcomes because I was published yesterday in the Journal of Higher Education on it. But what we are essentially going to be funding is a pilot program. $2 million pilot program, right? And that is just kind of questionable to me at best. Next is, what does this program do that is not already done by our teachers with the program that we already have with Zello? We pay $45,000 a year in subscription services for Zello. I checked that. That was in, I believe, somewhere in the August checks. I've discussed the program with Iowa City School, the Zello program with ICCSD teachers. I know that students have an 11th grade job shadowing internship, 5 mandatory Zello lessons per grade level for 20 total lessons in high school, an all 9th grade career field trip, an all 10th grade career field trip, 2 FAFSA lessons in 12th grade, a 9th grade summer jobs employers lesson, 15 guidance counselors are funded throughout the district. And we have Russ Johnson as a career coordinator. I'm just trying to figure, what does this do that we don't already have done? And as Director Finch just pretty much found out, that we haven't even engaged looking at what we have without having to spend $2 million. And now, there is a cost of the program, $2 million. If we break that down by 1,200 students in high schools and liberally adjust those 1,200 students over the next 10 years, that would be $167 per student for an intervention. We may add later, which would be great that if we're going to spend $2 million to add more than 28 days, or what was it, 25 or 28? I can't remember. 28. But it does not take into consideration the cost of chaperoning the experience, bus driving, the lost opportunity costs to build up other metrics for like those students on our IEPs and ELL students that we need to get across the finish line and proficiency standards. And I'm sympathetic for this having to get this workforce credential. Now, if this is the resources to get students these credentials, but if this is the most economically feasible solution that does not take money out of the general fund compared to other examples, I need to see that for the community. The community needs to see that. Because when a lot of the people in the community look at this, they just see the shiny bells and whistles. And when we go back PEPL is up in 2031, our current one, this is the type of thing that people will point out when we go to ask for more money, if we go and ask for more money. Like I'm sitting here and I look back and I look at decisions that were made 10 years ago, 15 years ago in this school district, and I realize sitting at this table that decisions that I make at this point in time will affect this district 5 years, and the school board in this district in 5 years, and the superintendent in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, and what they can ask for facilities and planning. And I need people to understand that the CIFI space is not an emergency. This concept was presented in an October board meeting when at least 2 board members, including myself, opposed it. Following the meeting, the administration had 5 months to engage the community and the board about why junior achievement was the Dream Accelerator, not junior achievement, sorry again. The Dream Accelerator was a worthy item or idea to pursue. Now, all of a sudden, I get an email last Sunday saying that we need speed on this. Then Thursday, I receive a memorandum of understanding. And yes, I know it's not asking directly for the money, but I also understand that I don't want to waste Mr. Klein's time. Is it Mr. Klein or?
Call me Nate.
Call you Nate. I just don't want to offend you. But the $2 million price tag in saying that we're going to vote next Tuesday, that's 4 days. 4 days to bring it to the community. And then, yes, we talked about it 5 months ago, but I haven't heard a thing until a week ago this past Sunday. And that is just not a strategy that I like. I mean, I need to be able to take things to the community and vet it. And, a lot of this comes to what is ahead. I mean, the 2% was passed yesterday. That's 159 school districts in the state of Iowa that will be on budget reduction next year. 159. Like, that's 159 districts that we know can't pay for the Dream Accelerator to come to our school district and visit it because they need to fund their classrooms. And it is just, when I think through this, the amount of money, the look, the optics, we have or nearby private schools. We have one adding a 35 students out of their 225. It's in their board documents. You have another one adding a kindergarten and a first grade next year. And those are people that start to lose the interest in what happens in our schools. And we need that interest in our schools if we're ever going to come back and ask for another facilities update and the facilities money. And at the end of the day, I just ask myself, does this expenditure encourage enrollment or keep enrollment steady? I don't know how a one-time 1.5 to 2 hour experience keeps people being like, oh, I'm going to enroll my freshman there or my ninth grader at the school. We know why people are enrolling their ninth graders at our schools. It's because of our arts. It's because of our athletics. It's because of our curriculum within our high schools. That is why we've had those conversations at the board table. We've had those conversations in private. I mean, when Charlie and I went on our little visit to City High, I walked by the band room and I hear one of the band director talking to new students saying, "You're new here, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I went to Regina last year. I'm here for band." Like, that is why they're coming to our school district. And, will it help students academically and socially? Maybe, but the data isn't there. And we're funding a $2 million pilot study to do it without looking at the full cost. And again, if this is the cheapest and most efficient, I won't even say cheapest because that degrades it, but if this is the most efficient way to get our students the workforce credential we need, which we do, I'm not arguing that, then give me the data so I can make the argument. Thank you.
Any additional comments or, all right. Thank you guys so much. And that takes us to our action items for tonight. The first one is the 600 Series Policies Education Program. Were there any additional comments or questions from directors regarding this? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the 600 series policy amendments as provided for on the attachment.
Seconded.
All right, Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. The next action item is the letter of intent with Junior Achievement. Were there any additional comments or questions from directors? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the letter of intent with Junior Achievement.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with directors Malone, Eastham, Williams, Abraham, and Istone voting yea, and directors Finch and Lingo voting nay.
Thank you. Next up are our upcoming events and community updates. First one is the legislative update. We have our last forum on Friday, April 25th. And I missed the one in March, but I'm going to kick it over to Superintendent Degner to give us some updates.
Sure. So a couple of the major updates have just been mentioned out loud in other presentations this evening. The 2% SSA, the math bill that's moved forward, and the governor's cell phone bill. And those are probably the most notable ones that I'm aware of as of this afternoon to report back to. There's, of course, still some other things in play, but we expect activity to pick up pretty rapidly here as they approach the end of the session and the end of at least their per diem. And so some activity will continue to take place in a lot of different areas. I think property tax reform is one that we all have our eye on, knowing how that could affect budgets, not only here, but with our cities and counties. And so just to be brief, since the time we're at, I think those are the most notable ones. And that, as President Malone mentioned, we have that last legislative forum on the 25th of April.
Thank you. Next up, director liaison reports. Are there any items that directors would like to highlight?
I didn't get my report in time, so I apologize for that. But I wanted to highlight this. I went to the jazz showcase at City High on Saturday night, and I just continued to be blown away at the talent of our students and the dedication of our instructors. And I found out that night that the Southeast Middle School Jazz Band is the only jazz band in the state to be invited to the Iowa Band Masters, which is just incredible. So I wanted to report that out. It was a lovely evening.
Great. Thank you, Director French.
Just wanted to give kudos to all of, I know we couldn't fund them all, I'm assuming, but to all the big ideas and the people that put in the time for those big ideas. I had a fun afternoon with Director Abraham, Mr. Shutt, and a community business leader, and we went through them. It was a good time. And then always the West High pancake breakfast, just the parents that are braving that 30 degrees Saturday morning. Some years it's much nicer. This year, not so much, to provide us with pancakes, and I provided them with a child to dump their chocolate milk, but that's always kind.
It's never warm that day. It's usually raining, actually. Yeah.
Go ahead.
President Luzon. I also didn't get my report in, but I would like to just point out that we attended the Miriam Girls Club dinner a couple of weeks ago, I think, maybe. Other board members are there too. It's very nice to see everyone there. And it's always a great event to go to. Lots and lots of kids having a really good time in one of our high schools.
Thank you. Just for community awareness, the Midwest One downtown Iowa City, they currently are running their art show for our elementary schools. So if you are downtown and just want to walk through, you don't have to be doing business there. Just let the person know at the reception desk, and they'll point you to some amazing artwork from our elementary school kids across the district. And I clearly have way more time on my hands that I actually filled the vacancy on the Iowa Association School Board, District 6. So, yeah, more meetings, yay.
Thank you for your service.
No. So with that, our next meetings are listed for our agenda setting. And wait, I'm sorry, I didn't have them open, so I want to make sure I go in the correct order. So policy and governance will be first, and looks like 700 series and policy primers will be discussed. Then we have our regular board meeting with our normal items. We'll hear about our education showcase. And discussion items will be a high reliability school update, fine art study will be back in front of us, or finally in front of us, and an action item. So I'm sure there'll be other things discussed at agenda setting, or if there's things directors want us to consider or put in a parking lot.
Are we taking the fine arts study
Gonna say,
out of
could
the
I
main?
mention a couple
work
things?
session, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
part
what
of
I
what, with the fine arts study we'd like to propose is that OPN delivers their report from the fine arts study during the regular meeting, then have a work session with you all afterwards about some of the work we've been doing with the building teams since that draft report came to us. So we thought that'd be better and more conversational in a work session, but have the formal presentation during that. The other major thing that I don't think President Malone said in the draft, so I don't think we have it on there yet, but is you're due to repurchase basically a whole lot of devices at the second meeting in April. It's our whole repurpose of our instructional technology for students. And so there was two things I had in mind that we could do there, and there's basically two different ways we could look at this. So we could do a presentation about the deployment model along with the purchase. The bid process is open now. The bid will end on the 18th. We would turn around the successful bid to you for the meeting on the 22nd. But if you wanted to hear more about the deployment model in advance of that meeting on the 22nd, we could also combine that with our education committee topic on the 15th. That is missing also from the draft agenda that we would do. Education Committee, it's supposed to be Castle. Every time we do Castle, it's a snow day, so we hope it won't be a tornado warning, and that we'll actually get to do that at Southeast. But just based on some of the recent feedback, I didn't know if folks would feel too compressed to get a presentation about here's the deployment model we want to look at, and then also have that purchase on the 22nd agenda, or if we're okay kind of getting both pieces of information. And then also just a note that the bid or the quote will not show up on board docs until like the day before the meeting, because that process closes on a Friday. Your meeting's on a Tuesday. We'll turn it around and get it to you as soon as possible. It's a big one. If we're talking, it's somewhere between $8 to $12 million potentially for all the student devices. So didn't want people to get caught off guard with the size or number there, but would be looking for board feedback on that one. Otherwise, I explained the fine arts. We'll do a preschool update, maybe in place of the HRS update. And I thought I had one more. Oh, certified budget. Adam will have the conclusion of that process for you about the certified budget on there as well. So kind of 4 big ones for the 22nd. And then if you guys kind of let me know how you'd want to proceed on the one-to-one deployment and purchase, I'd appreciate that.
Anything else from directors? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.